Chapter 342. The difficulty of carving a pseudo-magic treasure formation was extremely high. If it was a cultivator with average refining skills, even if they reached the core formation stage and had the spiritual sense of a core formation stage cultivator, there was still a certain chance of failure when carving a pseudo-magic treasure formation, let alone a magic treasure. Most core formation stage cultivators would prepare several sets of magic treasure materials at once before they would be able to refine a magic treasure. If the magic treasure was relatively powerful and the materials were extremely precious, then the core formation stage cultivator would have to spend a period of time learning the art of refining. Otherwise, they would have to find a core formation stage refining grandmaster to guarantee a one-time success. After all, a core formation stage cultivator would only be able to display their true strength with a magic treasure. For ordinary foundation establishment stage cultivators, if they wanted to refine a pseudo-magic treasure, their spiritual sense and refining techniques would have to be extraordinary. In the past, Zhu Siming of the Yang clan's refining peak was such a cultivator. Not only was his spiritual sense abnormally powerful, reaching the level of a core formation stage cultivator, but his technique of carving a magic treasure formation was superb. Therefore, when he was in the late foundation establishment stage, he was able to refine a pseudo-magic treasure. Even when refining a core formation stage magic treasure, he was able to provide some assistance. From this, it could be seen how powerful his refining techniques were. Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu's spiritual sense could barely be considered as late foundation establishment stage cultivators. Their spiritual sense was much weaker than Zhu Siming's when he was still in the foundation establishment stage. Fortunately, the two of them had already learned most of Zhu Siming's spiritual sense carving techniques. In addition, after 10 days of refining together, the two of them had already become more and more tacit, so they dared to work together to carve a pseudo-magic treasure formation. Lu Kuan placed the red hammer to the side and formed a hand seal with both hands. A light purple flame and an azure flame resonated with each other and burned on the layer of material. Then, the two brothers looked at each other and pressed their spiritual sense on the softened material at the same time. Boom! A powerful spiritual sense appeared. It was as if the two people's spiritual senses had merged. The strength of this spiritual sense rose steadily, and soon it surpassed the spiritual sense of a great circle foundation establishment cultivator. It was even slightly weaker than a core formation cultivator's spiritual sense. This art of consciousness fusion was a mystique that Zhu Siming had developed after improving the spirit sensing art. Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu had tried this mystique a long time ago. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to try refining a pseudo-dharma treasure. Unfortunately, the two of them didn't know that during the battle of the Yang clan, Zhu Siming and Nie Wufeng's spiritual sense fusion technique, Nie Wufeng led the technique to kill 3 core stage cultivators. After their spiritual sense fused, Lu Kuan immediately took out some powdered materials. Under the control of his spiritual sense, the powdered materials slowly and firmly drew an extremely complicated miniature formation in the depths of the black material. As the formation was perfected, the black light on the black material became even more profound. Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu had no choice but to increase the output of their magic power and true fire. Soon, the two's foreheads were covered in sweat. Qin Yushu's body was trembling. The burning azure flame also became somewhat powerless. Just when the pseudo-magic treasure formation was a third of the way down, a burst of green smoke suddenly emerged from the black material, and the complex array that had already been engraved seemed to have a chain reaction, turning into green smoke and disappearing one after another. With a plop, the two also seemed to have received a bit of backlash. Their faces were pale as they sat on the ground. Lu Kuan's defense was strong, and his breath was still stable. Qin Yushu, on the other hand, was in a much worse state than Lu Kuan. Not only was his robe soaked, his magic power also seemed to be somewhat unstable. The strange magic power, true fire burning on the iron, felt disappeared without a trace. Without the burning of the foundation establishment true fire, the black material gradually became hard. Like a layer of black clothing, it wrapped around one end of the silver dragon iron pillar. Senior Marshal Brother Qin, how are you? Qin Yushu sighed and said, I didn't think that the forging of a pseudo-magic treasure would be so difficult. When drawing the formation, you have to control the power of the flames at the same time. It's like dividing your mind into two. Every time a pseudo-magic treasure formation is completed, the materials supporting the formation will become more and more solid. Gradually, its true potential will be stimulated. Lu Kuan said, failure is very normal. Before, we had a guess. After the divine sense unification, although we can barely draw, there's an 80 to 90% chance of failure on the first try. But this time, there's also a huge gain. Hearing this, Qin Yushu revealed a smile and said, that's right. When we first drew the pseudo-magic treasure formation, we could clearly feel that the material of this black material was being strengthened. There were no signs of it being unable to bear the burden at all. Although we only drew a third of it, we can still say that this material is definitely a heavenly treasure level material. Moreover, it's a very special kind. Lu Kuan nodded and said, yes, I also have a feeling in the unseen world that if we can draw a true magic treasure formation, presumably this material will also be able to bear it. Qin Yushu agreed. I think so too. You see, after experiencing a failure to draw the formation once, this strange black material doesn't seem to have changed at all. If it's a lesser heavenly treasure, one failure might even damage its material. Like this, we can experiment a few more times. We'll definitely succeed. Senior Marshal Brother Qin, let's recover our magic power first, and then continue drawing. Okay. Afterwards, these two martial brothers sat cross-legged on the spot and began to recover their magic power. After their magic power recovered, they continued to draw the pseudo-magic treasure formation together. Unfortunately, the drawing of the pseudo-magic treasure formation was much more difficult than Lu Kuan and the others imagined. In the following month, they failed again and again. The best they did was only to complete 2/3 of the pseudo-magic treasure formation. Plop! They fell to the ground again, their expressions somewhat dejected. Qin Yushu shook his head and said, Junior Marshal Brother, with your magic power at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage, you can only hold on until now. Although my magic power is a bit purer than yours, with the help of pills, I can barely hold on until now. It seems that it's because our magic power is not enough. The further we go, the stronger the black material becomes. This pseudo-magic treasure formation must be drawn in the depths. In this way, we have no choice but to activate a stronger magic power fire. The consumption of magic power is extremely fast. Lu Kuan frowned and said, this black material is not simple. I can't imagine how I was able to fuse it into the unparalleled rod when I was in the chi condensation stage. Qin Yushu laughed. Junior Marshal Brother, you used the advantage of being a body cultivator. Relying on your physical strength and the power of the earthly fire, you didn't draw a powerful formation and just fused it into the unparalleled rod. Of course, it was extremely simple. Hearing Qin Yushu's words, Lu Kuan's eyes suddenly lit up. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Just now, I didn't use the advantage of being a body cultivator at all. In the process of drawing the formation, I can still use my physical strength. Qin Yushu understood Lu Kuan's strength very well and immediately understood. Junior Marshal Brother means that when we are drawing, you can use your physical strength to continue hammering the black material, using external forces to prevent it from hardening. In this way, we don't need to activate our magic power fire to the extreme, and the consumption of magic power is greatly reduced. Who knows, we might be able to hold on until the formation is finished. But, Junior Marshal Brother, you are doing 3 things at once. Drawing the formation, controlling the magic power fire, and controlling your physical strength to hammer the material. Lu Kuan revealed a confident smile and said, Senior Marshal Brother, the physical body is controlled by the nerves and doesn't need the power of the consciousness. I'm just adding the physical strength that I didn't use before into the process of forging. Chapter 343. After coming up with the idea, Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu reinvigorated themselves. After recovering their transcendence energy, they continued to carve. This time, their method was slightly different. Lu Kuan picked up the huge red hammer from the ground and held it with both hands. Then, he muttered an incantation, and a light purple transcendence energy fire appeared in front of him and floated to the bottom of the black material. Thanks to Lu Kuan's carving of the body spirit controlling array, he was able to release the transcendence energy fire so smoothly even when his spirit root was not present. Qin Yushu formed a seal with both hands and also summoned his light green flame. Together, they used it on the black material. Then, the two's consciousness merged into one. Urging the jade powder, they slowly and steadily carved the pseudo-magic treasure array. At the beginning of the carving, the black material had not changed, so it only needed the two's transcendence energy fire to slowly burn it. As time passed, the array was gradually carved to a third. At this time, Lu Kuan's eyes shone brightly with golden light. He stared at the black material. At the same time, the veins on his arms bulged. Dang! The huge hammer was lifted as if it was light and hit the silver dragon iron pillar where the black material was wrapped. This seemingly powerful hammer strike actually did not cause the iron pillar to tremble. The two's consciousness could clearly see that under this hammer strike, the originally solid material of the black material was slightly shaken. This made Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu's spirits soar. Sure enough, as they expected, the power of the physical body could help them refine pseudo-magic treasures. Next, Lu Kuan's hammering strength gradually increased from 20,000 kilograms to 60,000 kilograms, and the array carved in the depths of the black material was almost complete. However, the two's expressions became more and more serious. With the help of Lu Kuan's precise hammering, their transcendence energy had not been completely consumed. At this critical moment, they did not need to conserve and poured all their remaining transcendence energy into the transcendence energy fire. The two purple-green flames rubbed against each other and became even hotter. After a period of time, under Lu Kuan's repeated hammering with over 60,000 gene of strength, the incomparably complex magic array was only a few lines away from completion. However, the hardness of the black material was also rapidly increasing. In the face of the rapidly increasing hardness of the material, the combined strength of the two divine senses gradually became strenuous, and their faces also became pale. No, I don't have enough power. Sensing this change, Lu Kuan gritted his teeth, and his arms suddenly doubled in size, almost as thick as the red hammer. At this critical moment, he directly used the giant arm's mystique. The giant arm divine ability could almost increase his strength by 50%. In an instant, more than 90,000 kilograms of force smashed onto the incomparably sturdy black material. After Qin Yushu and Lu Kuan's divine senses merged, the two of them were almost telepathically connected and immediately erupted with their divine senses. Under the combination of the 45,000 kilograms of hammering force and the two different types of true fires, the last few lines of the magic array were completed in an instant. Roar! Just as the pseudo-magic treasure's magic array was completed, a roar appeared out of thin air, giving Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu a fright. Ji. Xiao Jin, who was originally bored and cultivating at the side, immediately woke up when he heard this roar. Immediately after, this little monkey became the size of a normal person, and his eyes were extremely red, as if filled with unwillingness. He raised his head and let out a similar roar. But then Xiao Jin seemed to have thought of something, and the red light in his eyes receded, and his monkey body returned to its normal size. He stared blankly at the black material that Lu Kuan and the rest had successfully carved into the pseudo-magic treasure's magic array. The expressions on Qin Yushu and Lu Kuan's faces were extremely interesting. Qin Yushu said in surprise, "Junior brother, I didn't expect a vision to appear. It seems like this is really an incredible heavenly treasure. But then he asked doubtfully, but Xiao Jin's roar just now was very similar to this vision. Could this heavenly treasure be related to ape-type demonic beasts? After Lu Kuan heard the roar just now, he thought of the roar that appeared when he was refining the blood marrow powder, but these two sounds were different. When he was refining the blood marrow powder, the roar that appeared was extremely fierce, as if it was an ape with terrifying attack power, just like the giant golden ape he saw in a trance back then. And this time, the roar that appeared was a little more lively, and was indeed somewhat similar to Xiao Jin. Lu Kuan murmured, "Sure enough, this black or material is related to our bloodline." No wonder Xiao Jin sensed it back then. It seems like it's true. Then what is the stone in the middle of the spiritual demon valley? When Qin Yushu heard this, he somewhat understood. He knew that Lu Kuan had a special physique, and Xiao Jin was a bloodline spirit beast. This thing was related to Xiao Jin's bloodline, and of course, it was also related to Lu Kuan's bloodline. Junior brother, let's continue refining. The successful engraving of the pseudo-magic treasure array on this side is just the beginning. Lu Kuan threw away the wild thoughts in his mind, and then continued to refine with Qin Yushu. Xiao Jin seemed to have been awakened by the roar, and stayed at the side while the two were refining this pseudo-magic treasure. The pseudo-magic treasure array was engraved in the depths of the black material, and it was incomparably complicated. That was why Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu found it so difficult to engrave it. However, some of the auxiliary arrays at the back were relatively simpler. Firstly, they did not need to be engraved in the depths, which meant that they did not need to completely soften the black material. Secondly, the auxiliary arrays were not complicated, and the engraving time was much faster. Lu Kuan and the others' transcendence energy could completely support it. Next, Lu Kuan held the hammer in one hand and continued to hammer the black material. Meanwhile, his and Qin Yushu's transcendence energy slowed down a little, and the two of them took out spirit stones to recover their transcendence energy. After they recovered their transcendence energy, they continued to engrave other arrays on it. Because the user was Xiao Jin, they only needed to engrave a few arrays that strengthened their attacks. There is also a miniature transformation array. With this array on the black material, the size of the silver dragon iron pillar could be changed under the activation of a user's transcendence energy. Time flew by, and more than 10 days passed. The silver dragon iron pillar gradually turned into an iron rod, and the arrays on both ends of the black material had been engraved. Xiao Jin, force out your blood essence, and we will engrave a bloodline array at the end. Xiao Jin nodded, and soon spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Lu Kuan and the others guided the blood to where the arrays were connected, and carefully engraved them. This bloodline array was the last step of the master recognition array between a pseudo-magic treasure and a magic treasure. Only after this array was completed, the owner of the blood essence would be able to unleash the magic treasure's power. If someone else obtained it, they would only be able to unleash 70 to 80% of its power. It's done. Amidst a burst of joy, a silver-black iron rod appeared in Lu Kuan's hand. When they were engraving the transformation array, Lu Kuan and the others had already fixed the size of the iron rod, so Xiao Jin could hold it with one hand. This iron rod was about 4 feet long, and the middle 3 feet emitted a resplendent silver light. The two ends were covered with a layer of black material that was engraved with array threads, and the grooves on the two ends were also shallowly covered. Lu Kuan looked at this iron rod. With the silver dragon meteorite iron as the main material, it would change size according to the master's demonic spiritual power. This reminded him of a weapon in Earth's mythology. Xiao Jin, this iron rod of yours, let's call it the wishful meteorite iron rod. Squeak. Senior brother Qin, this one took us more than a month, and we still need to refine 5 more. Xiao Jin's other wishful meteorite iron rod. My 2 iron rod pseudo-magic treasures, and 2 thunderball pseudo-magic treasures. In that case, time is still a bit tight. Qin Yushu laughed and said, Junior brother, the most difficult part has been overcome by us, and our refining skills have also improved. The following refining will not be difficult. It will definitely be completed before the opening of the Demon Island. TSK, TSK. I am looking forward to their power. Chapter 344. Time flew by, and a year passed in the blink of an eye. The people of Abyss Island's market were familiar with the new Treasure Pavilion. The cultivators who had bought magic tools from the Treasure Pavilion felt that there was no difference between this shop and the original Treasure Pavilion. After all, the quality of the magic tools were similar and the price was similar. As for the other shops in the market that sold magic tools, they had no conflict with the Treasure Pavilion for the time being. This was because their magic tools were either more exquisite and more expensive or cheaper and of average quality. Although there was no conflict of interest, these shops still inquired about the origin of the Treasure Pavilion from Abyss Pavilion's deacon, Su Ming. In the end, after these people stuffed some spirit stones, this greedy cultivator revealed that the Treasure Pavilion was a shop used by a cultivation sect in another country for their disciples to gain experience. Moreover, this sect was very powerful and was comparable to the 10 great sects. As for which sect it was, Su Ming kept his mouth shut. This caused the managers of these shops to gnash their teeth in anger. Su Ming's attitude clearly showed that he wanted more benefits from them. However, knowing a little bit of their origin was enough. After all, if there was no conflict of interest, there was no need to know their specific sect. In any case, it was fine as long as they didn't provoke them. However, they didn't know that even Su Ming didn't know the origin of this sect. He simply couldn't find out from Zhu Xiaofeng's mouth. On this day, in the backyard of the Treasure Pavilion, several people were constantly busy. At this time, the furnace in the backyard had some changes. The biggest difference was that there were 5 black iron felt next to it. Lu Kuan's 5 disciples stood next to these iron felt. Whether it was the female Sher Chao or the youngest Pan Yin, they all swung a silver sledgehammer in their hands and repeatedly hammered the refining materials on the iron felt. Each of them was using their physical strength to refine the materials. At this time, the strength of these first-generation disciples had increased. The siblings Zhao Qingtian and Sher Chao had already reached the great circle of qi condensation. They followed Lu Kuan's instructions and stabilized their cultivation for a while. When Lu Kuan returned from the Demon Island, he would help them enter the foundation establishment stage. Yu Xian, whose aptitude was a bit inferior, had also reached the 12th stage of qi condensation. However, this kid used his free time to cultivate the soul-sensing art to increase the power of his consciousness. Otherwise, even with Lu Kuan's help, it would be difficult for him to reach the foundation establishment stage. As for the 2 youngest disciples, Huang Xiaoyan and Little Pan Yin, they were still in the midst of cultivating the Vajra esoteric art. But Huang Xiaoyan had already reached the peak of the 7th stage of the Vajra esoteric art. Little Pan Yin, on the other hand, was currently at the 6th level of the Vajra esoteric art. This little fellow had already grown a lot, looking like a 16 or 17-year-old youth with a round head and big ears. Qin Yushu and Lu Xiao were also in the courtyard. Both of them had finished refining their respective Dharma artifacts and had just finished adjusting their breathing. They had just come out of their rooms. Lu Xiao looked at the 5 young disciples beside the furnace and said with a gratified expression, "With these little guys, it's a lot easier for us to refine magic tools. The quality of the materials they refine is very high. It's also very easy to carve all kinds of internal magic arrays." At the side, Qin Yushu smiled and said, "Senior Martial Brother Lu, Junior Martial Brother used his body cultivator cultivation method to refine weapons. To be able to refine 6 pseudo-magic weapons with me in the early stage of Foundation establishment, we know the advantage of body cultivators in refining weapons." Lu Xiao couldn't help but think of Lu Kuan. He said with some concern, "Junior Brother Qin, the Demon Island should be opening soon. I don't know if it's too dangerous for Lu Shidi to go in alone." He continued, "In the year when you were refining pseudo-magic tools, more and more Foundation Establishment Perfection Stage cultivators entered the Abyss Island. I went to the auction house with senior brother Zhu several times and saw many disciples of the top 10 sections. Just passing by these people made me feel great pressure. It was as if they could easily kill me. Qin Yushu smiled and said confidently, "If it was a year ago, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to defeat 2 or more of these disciples. But now it's completely different. With those pseudo-magic tools, even if Junior Brother can't use their full power, he might be able to take a few moves from the early stage of core formation. These core disciples are strong, but they are not in the core formation stage. Even if Junior Brother is besieged by several people, he can still protect himself. However, Junior Brother's mission is not to fight with these people, but to wait for an opportunity to kill the senior brother of the Red Refining Sect. After that, use the thick spirit energy inside to break through the bottleneck of the early stage of Foundation establishment. It's more difficult to find an opportunity to kill that person." Then Lu Xiao continued, "Junior Brother entered with the cultivation of the early stage of Foundation establishment. Even if Junior Brother managed to break through to the middle stage of Foundation establishment in 3 years, some of the disciples from the other sects would have already entered the core-bearing stage. If I met Junior Brother at that time." Qin Yushu laughed and said, "Senior Apprentice Brother Lu, it's not like you haven't seen Junior Apprentice Brother's concealment technique. My divine sense and physical mana can be completely concealed. When the time comes, a normal concealment technique will be able to avoid detection from everyone. And Xiao Jin is there. That guy's ears are very sharp." Lu Xiao thought for a moment and finally showed a relieved smile. "Junior Brother Qin, let's continue refining magic tools. After this batch is finished, we can cultivate for a while." "Okay." At the same time, on a sea more than 700 miles away from the Abyss Island, there were many cultivators floating on their magic tools. Their strength was uneven. Most of them were in the early and middle stage of Foundation establishment. There were even some Qi refining stage cultivators in the crowd. They were all looking at the sea in front of them with excitement. In front of them, there were about 50 cultivators. These people were divided into 10 teams and silently looked at the sea in front of them. One of the teams was made up of 2 men and 2 women. The man in the lead was wearing a light green robe. His appearance was very ordinary. His hands were behind his back, and he looked at the sea in front of him with a relaxed expression. The other man's skin emitted a faint golden light. His whole body emitted a sharp aura. Just by looking at his aura, he was much stronger than the man in the green robe. Of the 2 women behind him, one of them was wearing a fiery red robe. She had a voluptuous figure and a curvy figure. She had a look of anticipation. She was the fire lady that Lu Kuan had fought before. As for the last one, she was wearing a long blue dress. Her appearance was ordinary. She opened her big bright eyes and looked around. Was it the one who used the freezing energy talisman? The one who completed the transaction with Lu Kuan was Shui Ting the water fairy. Chapter 345. Shui Ting looked around for a long time, but didn't discover anything. She curiously asked, "Senior Marshal Brother Jean, didn't you say that the Grandmaster would come? Why don't I see him?" The golden-skinned Senior Marshal Brother Jean was the Foundation Establishment second Senior Marshal Brother of the Heavenly Talisman Sect. His name was Jean Feng. He cultivated the sect's top metal attribute cultivation technique, the art of golden light. His magic power cultivation had reached the great circle of Foundation establishment many years ago. Golden Peak looked at his junior marshal sister who had paid for the demon token and revealed a bitter smile. He said, "Junior marshal sister Shui, you don't have to look for him. The Grandmaster and the seniors from the other sects are nearby. However, they are very powerful and we can't find them." Shui Ting, curiously asked, "Seniors from the other sects? Could it be that the 10 great sects have nascent soul stage seniors? I feel that only a few martial uncles need to come. How would the rogue cultivators and disciples from the small sects dare to make a move on us?" Fire Lady frowned and coldly said, "Junior marshal sister, didn't you listen to what we told you before? Other than us human cultivators, there are many demonic beasts waiting to enter the demon island on the other side of the sea. During the Great War that year, many demon tokens fell into the hands of the demonic beasts. You have to know that other than the pure spiritual energy, there are also many places with dense demonic aura. If it's a peak class 4 demonic beast, under the stimulation of such dense demonic aura, it's very possible for it to form a Yao core and become a class 5 demonic beast. Fire Lady looked at the dense fog on the other side of the sea and said, "The nascent soul stage seniors from the various sects are here to guard against high-level demonic beasts. After all, those demonic beasts that have taken human form won't care about bullying the weak." Shui Ting wrinkled her nose and said, "Fire Lady, I know all of this. But why would the 10 great sects send their nascent soul stage seniors?" Fire Lady shook her head and said, "Junior Marshal Sister, the strength of Class 8 demonic beasts is not something we can imagine. They can even fight against mid-nascent soul stage cultivators, not to mention Class 9 demonic beasts. The demonic beasts that can enter the Demon Island are not simple. We have to be careful of those demonic beasts on the island. You should know that a powerful level 5 demonic beast is not inferior to us." Shui Ting pouted and said, "Humph, as long as those demonic beasts dare to come, I'll kill them one by one, two by two." Looking at Shui Ting, who was talking back to her, the Fire Lady ignored her and casually looked around. Suddenly, her expression turned sluggish as she looked at the rogue cultivators outside. Golden Peak noticed Fire Lady's movements and asked, "Junior Sister Fire, what's wrong? Did you see someone familiar?" The Fire Lady heaved a sigh of relief. She shook her head and said, "Maybe I was wrong. It's just that the figure is somewhat similar, but the appearance is completely different. Besides, even if that person's cultivation speed is heaven-defying, it's impossible for him to reach the great circle of Foundation establishment." Golden Peak couldn't help but think of a person. He said in astonishment, "Could Junior Sister be talking about the person suspected to be a disciple of the Yang clan?" Shui Ting's ears twitched. With a face full of curiosity, she asked, "Senior Marshal Brother Jean, who is the Fire Lady talking about? Can you tell me?" The Fire Lady's expression turned slightly dark. "Old Jean, don't mind Junior Sister." Hearing the Fire Lady's words, Shui Ting became even more curious. She continued to ask Golden Peak. At the place where the Fire Lady was looking at, there was a sturdy man with a long face. He was listening to the rogue cultivators chatting nearby. After the Fire Lady withdrew her gaze, he looked in that direction. This long-faced man was none other than Lu Kuan, who had changed his appearance. When the Fire Lady looked at him, he sensed it. However, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Even a core formation cultivator wouldn't be able to discover Lu Kuan's true appearance, let alone the Fire Lady. Fellow Taoist Kuan, the group you were looking at just now is the Heavenly Talisman Sect's disciple. TSK. That Fire Lady is the perfect dual cultivation partner in the eyes of many cultivators. Not only is her appearance excellent, her cultivation isn't weak, and she's also proficient in the art of talisman crafting. I'm afraid her status is comparable to a core formation cultivator. If you become her Tao companion, you won't even lack spirit stones. Could it be that fellow Taoist Kuan has taken a fancy to this Fire Lady?" Lu Kuan turned his head and looked at the lean male cultivator who spoke. He casually said, "Fellow Taoist Huang must be joking. I was just casually looking. Right, the Heavenly Talisman Sect has 4 people. Then the other groups with more people are all from the 10 great sects?" The lean male cultivator sighed and said, "Yes, the 10 great sects are becoming more and more powerful. After the Demon Island, I'm afraid there will be at least 20 more core formation cultivators among these people. Look at the northernmost group. There are 8 cultivators wearing Taoist robes. They are from the most powerful Tao 1 sect. The middle-aged man standing at the front of the group is Xian Qingzi. It is said that he once fought a level 5 demon beast. Although he was seriously injured, he still managed to escape with his life. It can be seen that his strength is extremely terrifying. A level 5 demon beast is in existence on the same level as a core formation cultivator. Being able to escape with his life after fighting with a Foundation establishment cultivator is truly amazing. When Lu Kuan heard this, he carefully looked at the middle-aged man, Xian Qingzi, with his golden eyes. Soon after, he saw Xian Qingzi turn his head and look in his direction. He hastily lowered his head. Lu Kuan was greatly alarmed. It seems this person's spiritual sense is incomparably powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to sense my gaze from so far away. The lean male continued. Although Xian Qingzi is known as the most powerful Foundation establishment disciple, there are rumors that Falling Cloud Valley's Han Yefeng, Scorching Sun sects Ouyang Lu, and Ghost Spirit sects and Ayu have all fought with core formation cultivators. These sects are second only to the Dao One sect. Each of them has 6 or 7 disciples that entered the Demon Island. Then the lean male looked at the 6 cultivators in the middle and shook his head. Although the 5th-ranked Golden Spear sect also has 6 people, they don't have a peak Foundation establishment cultivator among them. Their strength is relatively average. Lu Kuan followed the lean male's gaze and saw 6 men and women wearing yellow robes. With his powerful eyesight, he faintly discovered that these 6 disciples had similar appearances. They should be 3 pairs of brothers and 1 pair of siblings. He secretly noted this in his heart. The Golden Spear sect was the 5th-ranked sect. Since they sent out such a group, they must have their intentions. Behind them is the 6th-ranked Extreme Devil Palace. This Devil Dao sect's disciples are vicious and merciless. They use all sorts of despicable methods. Their strength may be lacking, but those with high cultivation can be tricked by them. A man next to him looked at the 2 women in the Supreme Devil Palace's group and revealed a wretched expression. But the female cultivators of the Supreme Devil Palace are so seductive. They have nice curves, fair skin, long legs, and wear such thin robes. They're definitely stunners. Fellow Daoists can go ahead and interact with them. I guarantee that these devilish women will devour you until not even your bones remain. They all cultivate a secret technique that absorbs yang to replenish yin. Fellow Daoist bones are lacking. I fear that you will be sucked dry in one go. The sects behind them are similar to the Heavenly Talisman sect. They form groups of 4 or 5 people. They are respectively, after the lean male's introduction, Lu Kuan had a rough understanding of the disciples of the top 10 sections. Then, he looked at a place and asked, Fellow Daoist Wang, are those 2 wearing blood-red robes the disciples of the Red Refinement sect? The lean male nodded. That's right. The middle-aged man in front is the first senior brother of the Red Refinement sect. I once heard from a fellow Daoist that this person's strength and talent are very ordinary. It took him almost 200 years to reach the Great Perfection realm. Luckily, he has the demon token. Otherwise, with his talent, he would have no fate with the core formation realm. When Lu Kuan heard the words ordinary, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He had eavesdropped on the conversation of the Red Refinement sect's disciples and knew that this middle-aged man also had terrifying strength. He could even fight against a core formation realm cultivator for a short period of time. Chapter 346. Just as Lu Kuan was thinking about how to deal with this eldest senior brother of the Red Refining sect, a strange wave spread from the sea. This vast and suffocating wave suddenly made everyone stop thinking and stare at the scene in front of them. Along with the appearance of this wave, a dazzling white light suddenly rose from the distant sea surface. Then, a yellow and white fog appeared. This fog was only a little bit at first, but in the blink of an eye, it had expanded to hundreds of miles in range. The thick fog continued to spread until it was about 5 kilometers in front of the group of immortal cultivators before it stopped. All the immortal cultivators' vision was completely blocked by the thick fog. Only under their feet and behind them could they see the blue sea water. The thick fog came quickly, and Lu Kuan felt that he had come to another world in a trance, and his expression was a little surprised. Not only Lu Kuan, but the cultivators here were all in the Foundation establishment stage and had a lifespan of more than 200 years. They had only heard about the scene of the Demon Island 300 years ago from some elders with profound cultivation, but no matter how these elders exaggerated it, they had not seen it with their own eyes. The lean man could not help but sigh. Although I, Huang Bufei, have seen many things, I have never seen such a strange and magnificent restriction. Yes, such a huge island is actually hidden by the restriction of the cultivators. I guess even the Star Moon Pavilion can't set up such a terrifying formation. Although the thick fog had not dissipated, they guessed that this island was at least 500 miles in size according to the scope of the thick fog. In front of such a huge island, they, the human cultivators, were even more insignificant than ants. Such a style is probably done by a senior above the apotheosis stage. It's too terrifying. The lean man listened to the discussion of the people next to him and smacked his lips. If thousands of cultivators were to be unified, it's possible to set up a formation of such a range. It's most likely set up by many ancient cultivators together. Lu Kuan could not help but say, the ancient cultivators set up a formation on this island and only show up once every 300 years. There must be some reason. Their approach does not seem to be sealing this island. Fellow Taoist Kuan, there are indeed many cultivators who think that a terrifying existence is sealed in this island, but from 10,000 years ago until now, more than 30 waves of cultivators have explored it. The cultivators who came out did not say anything strange. Instead, many people found elixirs, herbs, and some treasures in some ancient cultivators' cave residences. And if it was sealed, why would so many demon tokens be released? It's a pity that after so many explorations, the ancient cultivators' cave residences that can be broken have been broken. The remaining ones are the cave residences of the middle and late core formation stage, or even the nascent soul stage. Even if the cultivators who went in with magic weapons, they did not have time to completely refine the magic weapons. There is no way to break the restriction of such cave residences. Lu Kuan nodded silently and looked up at the two cultivators of the red refining sect. He found that the two of them were whispering and saying something. Unfortunately, Lu Kuan did not want to expose Xiao Jin at this time, so he could not eavesdrop. Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound of water. Many cultivators who were familiar with the life by the sea changed their expressions and flew to the sky quickly. The lean man looked nervous and urged the flying magic weapon to fly higher into the sky. Although Lu Kuan did not know what was going to happen, he immediately followed them. After a while, a huge wave of 100 feet high, mixed with a trace of yellow and white mist, came out of the thick fog. This turbulent ring-shaped wave was 70 to 80 feet thick. Even the cultivators who had always lived by the sea had never seen such a terrifying wave. However, they all knew that only the huge demon island in the thick fog suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea, creating a terrifying pressure that could lead to the formation of such a terrifying wave. When this huge wave surged out, the leaders of the 10 great sects in front of them were slightly bowing, as if they were respectfully listening to someone's voice transmission. Then, these powerful cultivators flew into the thick fog in front of them one after another. In addition to the disciples of the 10 great sects, there were many disciples of powerful sects or families who had demon tokens. When they saw the disciples of the 10 great sects flying in front of them, they seemed to have thought of something. Their expressions changed greatly, and they quickly accelerated to follow. They all stirred up the spiritual power in their bodies, and all kinds of spiritual light flashed. They quickly surpassed the disciples of the 10 great sects and rushed to the demon island wrapped in thick fog. These people included a man and a woman that Lu Kuan recognized. They were the disciples of the old man in the core formation stage from the original Lianbao Pavilion. They were master refiners who had completed the foundation establishment stage cultivation. Lu Kuan saw that these two people were so anxious that they rushed in before the disciples of the 10 great sects. His heart moved, and he vaguely thought of a certain possibility. Seeing that the two people from the red refining sect began to drive the flying magical artifact calmly, Lu Kuan urged the spirit shuttle under his feet to fly into the thick fog under the surprised eyes of the lean man and the others. Hey, fellow Taoist Kuan is also flying into the thick fog. Does he have a demon token? Not only fellow Taoist Kuan, but there are also many unfamiliar faces flying in that direction. It seems that many rogue cultivators have obtained demon tokens. However, This fellow Daoist Kuan is only in the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Even if he has a demon token, what's the use of going in? Is it to break through the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage with the help of spiritual energy? This is too wasteful. The lean man frowned and said, "This is not wasteful. This is courting death. Any one of them is in the Foundation establishment stage. If this guy goes in, he will be killed immediately." In addition to the disciples of the 10 great sects and the disciples of the slightly stronger sects and families, there were many rogue cultivators who had demon tokens. They all fell behind the 10 great sects, including Lu Kuan and the 2 people from the Red Refining sect. As Lu Kuan flew, he also paid attention to the discussions of the other cultivators who had demon tokens. The demon island is about to appear. Just now, it should be the elders of the 10 great sects who are transmitting messages to them. Those cultivators in front who are not from the 10 great sects are all using their spiritual energy to fly. Is it strange? Those people are too impatient. Core formation stage cultivators will spend at most 2 years to find a secret place. They don't need to rush for so little time. Lu Kuan looked at the rogue cultivators who also had demon tokens and were laughing at him with a strange expression. At the same time, he also noticed that the blood refining sect's eldest senior brother had a mocking smile on his face. However, a few scheming cultivators noticed the expressions of Lu Kuan and the blood refining sect's disciple and revealed a thoughtful expression. Although they also did not know why these people were rushing to enter before the disciples of the 10 great sects, they recognized that most of these people belong to powerful families and sections. Chapter 347. Soon, the thick yellow and white fog in front of them gradually dispersed, and a huge lush island could be vaguely seen inside. Everyone could see very clearly that there was a layer of shield emitting a faint silver light outside the island. Although the silver light on the shield was quite dim, the aura emitted from it made all the nearby cultivators feel a burst of fear. This shield that was exposed in front of everyone was a full 200 feet high and covered the entire island. It could be said that it was the largest array they had ever seen. The distance of 10 miles was very short for Foundation establishment cultivators. The fastest Foundation establishment cultivators had already surpassed the disciples of the 10 major sects and arrived outside this silver light shield. Some of them seemed to be chased by hungry wolves. They ignored their fear of the silver light and immediately took out the demon token and impatiently activated it. Then, under the protection of a burst of light, they disappeared into the shield. Not long after, the cultivators of the 10 major sects also entered together. At this time, Lu Kuan stood on the spirit shuttle and mixed in with the other rogue cultivators. He slowly approached the silver shield outside the demon island. He looked at the shield that was less than 200 feet high and secretly sighed in his heart. At such a height, my move can't exert its full power. After muttering to himself, Lu Kuan glanced at the disciples of the Red Refining sect again and saw that they had already passed through the silver light shield under the light. So he quickly took out the demon token and injected his spiritual power into it. Under the protection of a burst of white light, he followed closely. This silver light shield looked only a thin layer on the outside, but in fact, it was relatively thick. After activating the demon token, Lu Kuan found himself in the space inside the light shield. At the same time, an ethereal and terrifying energy swept across his body. At this moment, Lu Kuan felt as if he had been stripped naked and exposed to this energy. This energy did not seem to find anything in Lu Kuan's body and quickly retreated. After a while, Lu Kuan flew out of the silver light shield. In a burst of dizziness, he felt that the spirit shuttle had landed on a platform. Then he looked at the scene in front of him and sighed in his heart, thinking, as expected. He saw that this place was a huge circular platform. Coupled with the scenery in the distance, he could tell that this platform was the peak of a mountain. Above the mountain peak was the silver light barrier that emitted a heart-palpitating aura. Behind the platform was also a silver barrier. At this time, there were more than 10 cultivators standing on the platform. They were the last batch of rogue cultivators to enter here. They all looked nervous as they looked outside the platform. Outside the platform, There were more than 20 cultivators in various costumes surrounding the place. Lu Kuan had been introduced by the lean man outside, and he immediately recognized that these disciples were from the Extreme Devil Palace, Sky Sand Gate, Star Moon Pavilion, Poison Sect, and Heavenly Talisman Sect. Fellow Taoists, may I know why you surrounded us? One of the rogue cultivators couldn't stand the strange silence and asked. This sentence made many of the cultivators from the 5 great sects laugh out loud. At the same time, they looked at the rogue cultivators with even more evil intentions. One of the male cultivators from the Sky Sand Gate said, "Hee, you might not know this, but all human cultivators, no matter where they enter the Demon Island, will appear on this spirit descending platform. Those guys before were smarter. They knew that the 10 great sects would clear the place every time, so they entered the Demon Island in advance. However, with the Tao 1 sect and the Falling Cloud Valley chasing after them, they won't be any better than you." When the rogue cultivators heard this, their faces darkened. They only had a dozen people, while the other side had more than 20 people. They were all elite disciples of the 10 great sects. If the two sides fought, the rogue cultivators would most likely be no match for them. After the Sky Sand Gate disciple finished speaking, 2 of the rogue cultivators took out their demon tokens again and retreated to the barrier behind them. In the end, they discovered that no matter how they activated their demon tokens, they were unable to re-enter the silver barrier. The male cultivator from the Sky Sand Gate laughed aloud. "You rogue cultivators think that you can safely enter this place and attempt to form your core just because you obtain the demon tokens by chance. Hee, you don't know much about the situation here. In the first month of the Demon Island's appearance, you can only enter and not leave with the demon token. After a month, no one can enter or leave. You can only activate the demon token to leave the Demon Island in the last month of the 3rd year. There's no need for you to put up a pointless struggle." Seeing the killing intent in the eyes of the disciples of the 10 great sects, Lu Kuan locked onto the few artifacts in his storage pouch with his spiritual sense. He looked at the people in front of him calmly. Although he had some guesses about the situation, he was the same as the rogue cultivators. He didn't have any seniors to tell him about the situation inside the Demon Island. He had no idea that everyone would appear on this platform after entering. Right now, there was a silver barrier above and behind them. They were unable to escape. If they wanted to live, they could only fight the disciples of the 10 great sects head-on and find an opportunity to escape. A male cultivator from the Supreme Devil Palace suddenly said in a bewitching voice, "However, if you hand over a strand of your soul to us, we can spare your lives." Seeing the strange expressions on the rogue cultivators' faces, the male cultivator's spirit shook, and his voice was filled with temptation. "Don't worry, this trace of soul power won't affect you at all. It just can't attack us. Of course, in return, we can't kill you either." Afterwards, one of the rogue cultivators said with a clear expression, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Do you dare to believe the words of the Supreme Devil Palace?" His words immediately pulled some of the bewildered rogue cultivators back to reality. They could not help but break out in cold sweat. "Yeah, if I hand over this strand of soul, I might end up in utter misery. I can only become their puppet in the future. Looks like there's no way out. We can only fight to the death." Just as these loose cultivators had secretly made up their minds to fight, a blood-red light shot out from among the loose cultivators and flew towards the position of the Star Moon Pavilion's disciples among the 5 great sections. The leader of the Star Moon Pavilion was a man with sword-like eyebrows. When he saw this scene, he snorted. "You're courting death." Then, 2 formation plates with 8 trigrams appeared in his hands. Under the urging of his vigorous magic power, the formation plates rushed toward the blood-red light. Just as the 2 were about to meet, the blood-red light suddenly changed. The front part quickly turned into a huge blood-red hand, emitting a nauseating aura. The blood-red hand grabbed the 2 formation plates and pressed down on the disciples of the Star Moon Pavilion. Blood Demon Hand. Crimson Demon Technique. Chapter 348. The man with sword-like eyebrows from the Star Moon Pavilion cast a spell in his hand, and the disc in the blood-red hand shone brightly. It suddenly merged together and turned into a huge compass. Then, Under the rotation of the compass, the blood demon hand was shattered. However, after the blood demon hand was shattered, the bloody light continued to rush toward the two disciples below like sharp swords. After the two disciples heard their senior brother say that this spell was the blood demon hand, they knew how to deal with it. When they saw the bloody light falling, they quickly dodged to the sides. At the same time, a spiritual light flashed in their hands, intending to release some kind of spell. Chi-chi. The sound of corrosion came one after another. Corroded holes appeared on the ground where they were originally standing, and they emitted a nauseating smell. Thank you for your mercy, Star Moon Pavilion. Haha, my red refining sect will go first. It turned out that at the end of the blood-red hand, there were two crimson figures hidden. Under the cover of this blood demon hand, they successfully approached the group of people from the Star Moon Pavilion. Taking advantage of these people's fear of the corrosive power of the blood demon hand, the two people from the red refining sect successfully rushed out of the encirclement. From the appearance of the blood demon hand to the disappearance of the two disciples from the red refining sect, it seemed to take a long time, but in fact, it only took a few breaths of time. When the remaining rogue cultivators saw the appearance of the blood demon hand, they were all shocked. They quickly took out their own magic tools and attacked several other positions. Although they were surrounded because they knew little about the Demon Island, they were still experienced cultivators at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. They immediately seized the opportunity brought by the blood demon hand. The man with sword-like eyebrows, who was the leader of the Star Moon Pavilion, looked unlucky. He didn't notice that there were people from the red refining sect inside. Their red demon technique was not simple, and the blood demon hand was one of its great magical powers. In addition to the power of its own spell, it could also contaminate magic tools. The man with sword-like eyebrows had just combined his magic tool with all his strength to avoid being contaminated. It was because he only cared about protecting his magic tool that the two people from the red refining sect took the opportunity to escape. Looking at the battle around him, the man with sword-like eyebrows recalled the combined compass in front of him. Rays of spiritual light flew out from it and joined the battle of the rogue cultivators. Suddenly, in the eyes of the man with sword-shaped eyebrows, a burly man walked straight towards the three of them from the Star Moon Pavilion. Early-stage Foundation establishment. The man with sword-shaped eyebrows could tell the burly male cultivator's strength at a glance. Then, his expression turned ugly. Do you really think that the Star Moon Pavilion's combat power is weak? A mere early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator wants to break through my encirclement. Immediately afterward, the compass in the man's hand began to spin, and rays of spiritual light flew out of the compass. Almost in the blink of an eye, it formed a 3-meter-long 8 trigrams in front of him. It was completely composed of spiritual light. Suddenly, a purplish-black ball-shaped Dharma artifact appeared in the hands of the burly male cultivator. It was densely covered with lightning runes, and one could tell at a glance that it was no ordinary Dharma artifact. When the purple-black magic ball appeared, the man with sword-shaped eyebrows suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of palpitations. It was as if the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator in front of him could completely rival him. How is this possible? How could an early Foundation establishment cultivator be a match for me? Although he felt that this feeling was ridiculous, he was Zhai Xingzi, the eldest Foundation establishment senior brother of the Star Moon Pavilion. He had experienced countless battles and would not let his guard down against any opponent. He immediately recited the Dharma incantation. The compass in front of him shone brightly and then rushed forward. It merged with the 8 trigrams spiritual light, forming a solid 8 trigrams diagram. Suddenly, a terrifying power was released. Hey, Zhai Xingzi is using this move so soon? He let the two people from the red refining sect slip out due to his negligence. It's understandable that he's angry now. Strange, he's actually going to deal with an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator? What a joke. An early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator actually dares to come to Demon Island. Some of the disciples from the 5 major sects sensed the power of Zhai Xingzi's Dharma artifact and looked at each other in shock. Then, they found that Zhai Xingzi was actually targeting an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. In everyone's vision, purple lightning appeared on the burly man's arm. At the same time, his body expanded. He held the purple-black ball tightly in his hand and made a throwing motion. At this moment, many powerful disciples from the 10 major sects stopped their attacks. They all felt the same as Zhai Xingzi. This man had the strength to match them. There was a muffled sound. The burly man's purple-black Dharma ball was thrown out. This light purple Dharma ball had traces of lightning entwined around it. It seemed to have traveled through time and space and instantly appeared in front of the 8 trigrams diagram. Moreover, for some reason, this Dharma ball suddenly became 3 times bigger and bombarded the 8 trigrams diagram. Boom! This solid 8 trigrams diagram seemed to have been hit by a small mountain. It could not bear the burden and retreated. Zhai Xingzi was sweating profusely. He frantically activated the power of his divine sense and controlled it tightly. Only then did he not let the 8 trigrams diagram suppress him. Looking at the dim spiritual light on the 8 trigrams diagram, Zhai Xingzi heaved a sigh of relief. He looked up, and his expression changed drastically. He saw that the same terrifying Dharma ball appeared in the burly man's hand. Just like before, it smashed towards the Dharma disc in front of him. Zhai Xingzi quickly retreated. That powerful force had smashed his Dharma disc back. He had to activate the power of his divine sense with all his might to stabilize the Dharma disc. This time, he was relieved to be further away. As expected, this strange Dharma disc immediately became 3 times bigger when it was about to hit his 8 trigrams diagram. The same terrifying force poured out. Zhai Xingzi had no choice but to continue retreating. What? Zhai Xingzi's eyes bulged. He looked at the man who was about to throw the strange Dharma ball in disbelief. Only now did he realize that under the rotation of the 2 Dharma balls, the man could repeatedly throw them at such a distance. He did not give the enemy any chance to breathe. "Senior brother, let's go together." Fortunately, Zhai Xingzi was not fighting alone. Although the others from the 10 major sects might not help, his 2 junior brothers would definitely help. The 2 of them quickly came in front of Zhai Xingzi. Each of them summoned the same Dharma disc. However, they did not realize that this burly man had forced the few people from the Star Moon Pavilion to change their positions. A gap had appeared in the encirclement. This early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator's cultivation method is so strange. He actually suppressed Zhai Xingzi for a while. Although Zhai Xingzi's strength is not the best, his opponent is only at the early stage of Foundation establishment. Let's make a move. It's fine if the Scarlet Refinement sect disciple escaped. If we let this early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator break out of the encirclement, we'll be mocked to death when we see those guys from the Dao 1 sect and the Falling Cloud Valley. The burly man immediately noticed that several core disciples from other sects were attacking him. He glanced at the gap in the encirclement and immediately recalled the 2 Dharma balls. Then, thunderous sounds came from under his feet. Under the shocked eyes of all the cultivators, this burly man flashed out of the encirclement like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 349. Looking at the disappearing burly man, Star Moon Pavilion's Zhai Xingzi's face had already turned into the color of pig liver. Previously, the Scarlet Refinement sect's people had broken through here. After all, many people knew the power of the Scarlet Devil technique. However, who knew that a rogue cultivator had also broken through here? He had just exchanged blows with this rogue cultivator with a strange technique and weapon. Of course, he knew that this rogue cultivator's strength was incomparably shocking. He was only in the early stage of Foundation establishment, but he was not inferior to him. However, in the eyes of the other cultivators present, it was different. In the eyes of outsiders, Zhai Xingzi was forced to retreat by an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, and in the end, the rogue cultivator took advantage of the gap to escape. Regardless of how these people would mock and ridicule him after the battle, Zhai Xingzi felt that someone was watching him. After the burly man escaped, the others were wholeheartedly surrounding and killing the remaining rogue cultivators. Only this person was still watching him. After Zhai Xingzi and his 2 junior brothers re-surrounded the crowd, he felt that someone was still looking at him. He could not help but turn around and glare at a red-clothed female cultivator from the Heavenly Talisman sect. He said coldly, "Fire Fairy, if you want to laugh at me, you can wait until the battle is over. Why do you keep staring?" It turned out that the one who had been looking at Zhai Xingzi was the Fire Lady from the Heavenly Talisman sect. Among this group of rogue cultivators, the Fire Lady immediately saw the cultivator suspected to be the remaining disciple of the Yang clan. She also discovered that this person actually entered the Demon Island with an early-stage foundation establishment cultivation. She began to suspect that this burly man with a long face was very likely the powerful enemy who forced her to use a pseudo-magic treasure to escape unscathed. Later, in order to break out of the encirclement, this burly man launched an attack on Zhai Xingzi. Although the Fire Lady had never seen this person use that strange magic ball, she could clearly sense the thunder attribute magic power and surging physical strength in the attack. In addition to this person's escape technique, the Fire Lady could be sure that this person was the cultivator suspected to be the remaining disciple of the Yang clan that she briefly fought with that day. Daoist brother Zhai Xingzi, Junior Sister Fire, should have felt the powerful strength of that rogue cultivator and was just shocked. She definitely did not mean to laugh at you. Seeing that the Fire Lady was still in a daze, Golden Peak took the initiative to apologize to Zhai Xingzi. Seeing Golden Peak's appearance, Zhai Xingzi's expression softened a little. He glanced at the Fire Lady's expression and nodded to Golden Peak. Then, he turned to his two junior brothers and said, "Junior brothers, let's go all out and use the secret combined attack." "Yes, senior brother." Golden Peak shook his head as he looked at the disciples of the Star Moon Pavilion who were using their full strength. He formed a protective barrier that enveloped the Heavenly Talisman sect. This protective barrier not only had a defensive function, but could also prevent others from probing. Golden Peak looked at the Fire Lady who had regained her senses and said thoughtfully, "Junior sister, you looked at Zhai Xingzi like that just now. Could that rogue cultivator be the person you were talking about?" Fire Lady nodded with a strange expression and said, "That's right. It's that person. Back then, he claimed that his surname was Liu. I don't know if he used a fake name, but according to Old Jean, he's most likely the one from the Yang clan. However, he's only at the Foundation establishment stage. What's the use of him coming to the Demon Island?" Shui Ting, who was controlling the two blue long swords, immediately slowed down her attacks after hearing the Fire Lady's words. She said excitedly, "So that male cultivator who just escaped is the one who forced Senior Sister to use the secret technique. From the power of the attack just now, Senior Sister Fire, you're indeed not his match." At this moment, the green-robed man from the Heavenly Talisman sect, who hadn't attacked the rogue cultivators, suddenly said, "Junior Brother Jean, this person's origin was told to you by your new friend, right?" Golden Peak was puzzled by the green-robed man's words, but he still said respectfully, "Yes, Senior Brother. We were just chatting and mentioned a cultivator from the Yang clan with a strange technique. Combined with Junior Sister's experience, we suspect that this person is a surviving disciple of the Yang clan." The green-robed man recalled the battle just now and said, "If I'm not wrong, this person's technique is very powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such strength at the Foundation establishment stage. When he was fighting with Zhai Xingzi, I saw it clearly. His magic power has reached the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. The density of his magic power is even comparable to that of a normal Foundation establishment stage cultivator. You should know that the more powerful the technique, the harder it is to break through. Maybe this person came to the Demon Island to break through the Foundation establishment stage." The Fire Lady and the others looked at each other. Shui Ting was especially speechless. "Senior Brother, is this true? I came to the Demon Island to increase my chances of forming my gold core. That's why I paid a great price to come to the Demon Island. This guy just now paid a great price and risked his life to come to the Demon Island. Could it be that he wanted to break through the bottleneck of the Foundation establishment stage?" The green-robed man didn't answer this question. Instead, he revealed a mysterious smile and said to Golden Peak, "Junior brother, coincidentally, I heard some news about the Yang clan some time ago. As for whether this person is from the Yang clan, I still need to confirm with your friend. Eldest senior brother, let's go out in 3 years and meet him again. I remember that his immortal's cave is near our sect." The green-robed man looked outside the mountain peak, and a strange expression flashed across his face. "There's no need. Your friend has already come to the Demon Island." Golden Peak said in shock, "How can it be? Other than our 10 great sects, there are only 2 waves of cultivators from other sections. Could it be that he's hiding in the group of cultivators from the small sects? The ones chasing after them are the Dao East sect's Luo Yun Valley. Then wouldn't he be..." The green-robed man chuckled and said, "Junior brother, you're underestimating him. Back then, he was only at the foundation establishment stage, but he was already the senior brother of the #1 sect in the Wei Nation, the Shangqing sect. Now that his cultivation has reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage, his strength is definitely not inferior to mine. If I hadn't seen him before and sensed his aura, I wouldn't have been able to discover that he was hiding. Even if the Dao East sect and the Luo Yun Valley had the strength to defeat him, they wouldn't have been able to catch him. It's just as well. I'll find him and ask him some questions." The green-robed man said, as if it would be easy to find that person. Golden Peak was a little confused by his senior brother's words. He didn't understand why his senior brother wanted to find that person and ask about the burly man. "All right, you guys don't have to think too much. Let's kill this group of itinerant cultivators with all our strength first. Otherwise, the spoils of war will be snatched by the people from the other sections." After the green-robed man finished speaking, he flicked his green sleeves, and 2 green lights shot out as fast as the wind, attacking several places where the battle was intense. Chapter 350. About 10 miles away from the entrance of the Spirit Descending Platform Mountain, Lu Kuan was half-bent. He held a thick tree with one hand and lowered his head as if he was in pain. His body had also changed. His exposed skin was covered with crisscrossing blood vessels. Even his face was covered with red lines, which made him look very ferocious and terrifying. Lu Kuan took a deep breath and seemed to have eased a little. He immediately opened the spirit beast bag at his waist and released Xiao Jin. At the same time, he summoned a light purple spirit shuttle. This spirit shuttle looked very different from the one he used before. There were 2 pitch-black holes at the back. After seeing Xiao Jin, Lu Kuan quickly said, "Xiao Jin, I'll have to trouble you. There shouldn't be any immortal cultivators chasing after us." Xiao Jin looked at Lu Kuan's body with a worried expression. His ears trembled as he shook his head. Lu Kuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's good that they didn't chase after us. However, we don't have much time left. Just now, with the cooperation of thunderous explosion steps, I stimulated the fastest speed of my physical body and ran for more than 10 miles. The 2 people from the Red Refining sect shouldn't be much faster than me. Use your spirit ears to check if there are any escape lights within 20 to 30 miles. Xiao Jin activated his innate ability. His ears emitted a faint golden light as he carefully investigated. Squeak, squeak. Lu Kuan heard this and his face was overjoyed. He said, "Great, Xiao Jin, use our previous method to install a spine on the spirit shuttle." Xiao Jin nodded. He and Lu Kuan jumped onto the spirit shuttle at the same time. Then, Lu Kuan patted his storage bag and 4 long rods and 2 magic balls appeared out of thin air. 2 of the silver and black rods were Xiao Jin's pair of wishful meteorite iron rods. As for the other 2 rods, they were slightly different from Xiao Jin's. Other than being silver in the middle, both ends of the rods were covered with purplish-black lightning patterns and other arrays, just like the magic ball. Then, Lu Kuan and Xiao Jin activated their respective pseudo-magic treasures at the same time. Xiao Jin enlarged his pair of wishful meteoric iron rods a little, rotated them in the air, and inserted them into the 2 black holes at the back of the spirit shuttle. Next was Lu Kuan's purple-black staff, followed closely by the wishful meteorite iron staff. At the same time, there was the sound of a slot being locked, as if one end of their pseudo-magical equipment had been embedded together. But behind the spirit shuttle, Lu Kuan's pseudo-magic weapon still had a small purplish-black section exposed. Then Lu Kuan cast a spell on the purplish-black magic balls, and the two balls were stuck in the exposed end of the staff. The spirit shuttle immediately had two more tails that looked like jet cylinders. Xiao Jin, activate the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle and follow them. I will relieve the injuries of my physical body first. Then he saw Xiao Jin showing an extremely excited look. He urged the demon spirit power in his body, and then the tail of the spirit shuttle emitted a faint purple light. Then, with a roar, the spirit shuttle flew quickly in a direction. If the disciples of the top 10 sects saw this scene, they would be shocked. This speed was not something that a foundation establishment stage cultivator could achieve. It was completely close to the speed of an early core formation stage cultivator. Lu Kuan felt the speed of the spirit shuttle and showed a satisfied look. Haha, we can't repair the silver dragon flying boat, but with 4 pseudo-magic treasures made of silver dragon meteorite iron, we can make some changes to this spirit shuttle. My meteorite iron rod and Xiao Jin's wishful meteorite iron rod will be the backbone of the spirit shuttle. This silver dragon iron rod was originally engraved with a flying array by my seniors. As for my falling thunderballs, the silver dragon iron ball in the center is engraved with an acceleration array. After senior Marshall Brother Chin and I studied the design of the silver dragon flying boat, the silver dragon flying boat has finally formed. This silver dragon spirit shuttle has finally taken shape. Although its speed is much slower than the original silver dragon flying ship, it is far beyond the reach of Foundation establishment cultivators. It turned out that this spirit shuttle was designed by Lu Kuan and Qin Yushu after refining the wishful meteorite iron rod, and falling thunderball. These pseudo-magic treasures were designed according to the situation of these pseudo-magic treasures and the silver dragon flying boat. This was also the reason why Qin Yushu was not worried about Lu Kuan's trip. After all, this spirit shuttle used 6 pseudo-magic treasures. Even if it was not comparable to a flying magic treasure, it was at least a flying pseudo-magic treasure. Moreover, its requirements were the same as the silver dragon flying boat. It could be driven by the spiritual power of a Foundation establishment stage cultivator, but needed the owner of the pseudo-magic treasure to control it. With a speed comparable to the early core formation stage, coupled with Lu Kuan's strong defensive power, of course, it was extremely safe on this vast island. Looking at Xiao Jin, who was skillfully controlling the silver dragon spirit shuttle in front of him, Lu Kuan was quite relieved. This little monkey had followed him in battle for many years. Coupled with the cultivation of the body cultivation method, it was able to give birth to the power of divine sense with the strength of a second-level monster. And just now, the spirit shuttle was combined with Xiao Jin's wishful meteorite iron rod, which was engraved with the bloodline array. It was easier to control than the previous spirit shuttle, but consumed a lot of demonic spiritual power. Then, Lu Kuan began to operate the body cultivation method to relieve his muscle damage. The escape technique that Lu Kuan used to escape from the gap of the Star Moon Pavilion disciples was a new escape technique that was a combination of the thunderstorm steps and the body controlling flying technique. The thunderstorm steps was suitable for short-distance bursts. Its speed was indeed like a flash of lightning, making it impossible for people to guard against. However, if it was used for long-distance running, with his current physical body, he would not be able to withstand such terrifying pressure. It could only be combined with the body controlling flying technique to reduce part of the speed and relieve the pressure on his physical body. Just now, he had used all his strength to urge the thunder-controlling flying technique to the extreme, which almost caused the blood vessels in his body to burst. With the strength of the physical body combined with a little spiritual power, he was able to run at the speed of a Foundation establishment great perfection. Just thinking about it was terrifying. The contraction of the muscles at the fastest speed required a large amount of blood supply, and the blood vessels were under great pressure. Although Lu Kuan had tempered his physical body for many years and his blood vessels were very tough, they were still a little lacking to withstand this kind of pressure. However, this time, using the extreme speed allowed Lu Kuan to have a clearer understanding of the next stage of body tempering. After entering the middle stage of foundation establishment, the thunder attribute spiritual power would enter the blood through the bone marrow. Then, there would be spiritual power inside and outside the blood vessels of the entire body. Under the double tempering, the blood vessels would definitely be tougher and their endurance would greatly increase. Moreover, after the blood was filled with the thunder attribute, not only could the blood vessels be completely tempered, the blood could even bring the spiritual power to the internal organs, especially the heart. At that time, the fighting strength would not necessarily be increased, but the endurance of the body and the endurance of the physical body would definitely be a lot stronger than now. Under the slow tempering of the spiritual power in the blood, the heart and the other internal organs would be strengthened again. After that, he would truly enter the late stage of foundation establishment, the organs forging stage, which was also the tempering of the internal organs. Presumably, when Lu Kuan reached the late stage of foundation establishment, the spiritual power of his physical body would be greatly strengthened. Under the effect of the thunder attribute spiritual power and the wood attribute recovery power, Lu Kuan quickly alleviated the discomfort in his blood vessels. His skin also returned to its normal color. Squeak, squeak. It was also at this time that Xiao Jin's voice entered Lu Kuan's ears. Hearing this, Lu Kuan hurriedly said, "Xiao Jin, are they talking? Quickly tell me what they said. Who knows, I might be able to find a way to deal with them." Chapter 351. In the sky above a vast grassland, a small crimson flying boat was flying at high speed. Two foundation establishment stage cultivators wearing crimson robes were standing on the boat. The leader was a middle-aged man with a face full of vicissitudes. There were a few crow's feet at the corner of his eyes. He didn't look young. At this time, he was controlling the small flying boat under his feet. At the same time, his eyes were observing the surrounding scenery, as if he was judging the location. This middle-aged man was the senior brother of the foundation establishment stage, Tian Renjia, who was respected by all the foundation establishment stage cultivators in the red refining sect. The man next to him looked much younger. He was a little plump, with thick eyebrows and small eyes. He was also checking the surrounding terrain with a nervous expression. From time to time, he looked back. When his eyes swept over the middle-aged man, he showed a look of admiration. This plump man was another cultivator of the red refining sect, Kai Fingyan. Tian Renjia saw that his junior brother was a little distracted and said, "Junior brother Kai, you have also seen that map. Look left and right. Did my direction deviate?" The plump man hurriedly shook his head and said in an extremely respectful tone, "Senior brother, there's no mistake. It's in this direction. I'm just worried that the disciples of those major sects will catch up." Tian Renjia snorted coldly and said, "How can those guys be willing to leave? Outside the Demon Island, they have no chance to kill so many cultivators of the foundation establishment stage." Kai Fingyan's small eyes showed some regret and said, "It's a pity. If we have such an opportunity, we can at least kill a few rogue cultivators of the foundation establishment stage. Their essence and blood will be much more useful." A glint flashed in Tian Renjia's eyes as he said, "Humph, our red refining sect must not reveal such signs in broad daylight. Otherwise, we will be annihilated by other sections. You know, even the Heavenly Talisman sect, which is ranked last among the top 10 sects, has the absolute strength to destroy us." Kai Fingyan nodded again and again, as if he was very clear about the strength of the top 10 sections. He sighed and said, "If it weren't for senior brother, who cultivated the incomplete red refining demonic technique derived by martial Uncle Ren to such a level, our red refining sect might never have a day of success." Tian Renjia heard this and showed a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. In the current red refining sect, there were also a few disciples with outstanding aptitude who cultivated the incomplete red refining demonic technique. He was the only one who had cultivated to the foundation establishment stage. The others were only in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. The only disciple who had advanced to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage under his guidance. These people's talents were all top-notch. If they cultivated the crimson demonic technique, they would have already entered the core formation stage. And he, Tianrenjie, would not only be at the great circle of Foundation establishment at the age of 200 years old. Kai Fengyin suddenly slapped his head and said, "Eldest senior brother, when we launched our surprise attack, just now, the blood demon hand you used was much more powerful than the normal Crimson Demon art. Will it arouse their suspicions?" Tianrenjie sneered and said, "If I attack the philosophies of the Heavenly Talisman sect next to us, he might find out." Zhai Xingzi, on the other hand, has a set of formations, but his comprehension of spells is extremely poor. It's impossible for him to find out anything. The senior brother of the Red Refining sect continued, "We won't have any communication with them in the future. Let's hurry up and find the place Martial Uncle Ren mentioned." Kai Fengyin quickly nodded. When he heard his senior brother mention Martial Uncle Ren, he couldn't help but show a look of reverence and said, "If Martial Uncle Ren didn't tell us about this not long ago, I wouldn't know that 2 people from our Red Refining sect also entered the Demon Island last time." Tianrenjie said with some emotion, "Martial Uncle Ren and Martial Uncle Xiang, who we haven't seen before, are both heavenly talents. It was also the 2 of them who worked together to reverse part of the Red Refining demonic technique from the Red Refining demonic technique. At that time, they were both at the Foundation Establishment Realm's Red Refining demonic technique. After deriving the Red Refining demonic technique, they were almost 200 years old. Therefore, they had to consider the matter of core formation. Coincidentally, the Demon Island opened at that time. In addition to the demon token in the sect, they got another one and finally entered the Demon Island together." Tianrenjie's tone also contained a trace of respect and said, "According to Martial Uncle Ren, Martial Uncle Xiang is extremely obsessed with the Red Refining demonic technique. Even if he can easily use the Red Refining demonic technique to successfully form his core on the Demon Island, he wholeheartedly studied the core formation method of the Red Refining demonic technique." Kai Fengyin said, "It's a pity that Martial Uncle Xiang switched to the Red Refining demonic technique halfway. Even with the help of enough blood essence, the difficulty of forming his core was still very high." Tianrenjie revealed a somewhat fortunate expression and said, "Fortunately, Martial Uncle Ren was quite decisive. With the help of the abundant spiritual qi here and a high-grade red blood origin pill, he successfully formed his core using the Red Refining demonic technique. However, Martial Uncle Xiang planned to stay on the Demon Island and use the abundant spiritual qi here to enter seclusion and break through to the core formation stage of the Red Refining demonic technique. Therefore, in the end, Martial Uncle Ren was the only one who left the Demon Island." Kai Fengyin sighed and said, "Fortunately, Martial Uncle Ren formed his core. Otherwise, eldest Martial brother wouldn't have been able to inherit Martial Uncle Ren's Red Refining demonic technique. He cultivated the Red Refining demonic technique to the Foundation Establishment realm from beginning to end. His current strength is not inferior to any of the core disciples of the 10 great cultivation groups." Tianrenjie's eyes flashed with a frightening light as he said, "Even with my Foundation Establishment realm Red Refining demonic technique, I can exchange a few moves with an ordinary early core formation cultivator. It can be seen how powerful this technique is. If I can really use this technique to form my core, my strength will most likely reach the late core formation stage." Kai Fengyin's face was full of excitement as he said, "Eldest Martial brother, you can definitely do it. Under our secret operation, we've collected enough Foundation Establishment Realm Blood Essence. Although they're all late Foundation Establishment Realm Blood Essence, the quantity is enough. In addition to the red blood origin pill and the heaven-changing pill refined from the 1,000-year-old blood coagulation grass, as well as the abundant spiritual qi on the Demon Island, eldest Martial brother's chances of advancing to the core formation stage are almost 80%. Tianrenjie shook his head and his eyes flashed. "I don't want 80%, I want 100%. Therefore, we must carefully investigate the place where Martial Uncle Xiang is." Kai Fengyin suddenly thought of something and said, "Although the cultivators who stayed on the Demon Island and didn't come out in the past haven't been seen the next time it opens, there might be an exception. If Martial Uncle Xiang advances to the core formation stage, according to the time, he's still a little short of the 500 years of lifespan of the core formation stage. If Martial Uncle is still alive, can we catch all the cultivators on the island in one fell swoop? Tion Rinja shook his head and said, "This situation is almost impossible. Otherwise, such a thing would have happened in the previous 30 or so openings. I heard from Martial Uncle Ren that he promised Martial Uncle that he would leave the last comprehension for the future disciples of the Red Refining Sect to come and obtain." With a fanatical expression, he said, "The experience of advancing to the core formation stage from the Scarlet Refining Devil technique is the most precious thing to me. With this, I'm 100% sure that I can advance to the core formation stage. At that time, the rise of our Scarlet Refining Sect will begin." At this time, Kai Fengnian noticed that the surrounding terrain had turned into a light redstone forest. He was shocked and said, "Eldest Martial Brother, we've already reached the redstone forest. We're almost there. And speed up." Chapter 352. About a dozen miles away from Tian Renjia, Lu Kuan was sitting cross-legged on the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle. After listening to Xiao Jin's retelling, he was enlightened. It turns out that they are going to the retreat of the elders of the Red Refining Sect 300 years ago. It seems that Tian Renjia is very well prepared. If he obtains the experience of his elders' Red Refining demonic technique, the breakthrough is basically guaranteed. I must make a move before he forms his core. Lu Kuan had already inquired about the situation of the Red Refining Sect when he was in the Abyss Market, and he knew the name of the Red Refining Sect's Foundation Establishment Senior Fellow Apprentice. Then Lu Kuan touched his chin and analyzed. If this guy directly chooses to retreat in the cave house used by his elders, then the other Red Refining Sect disciple will definitely protect him. I will wait until he starts to form his core. I will secretly kill the one with the weaker strength. His core formation process was interrupted by me, so he will definitely suffer a backlash. At that time, Tian Rinja will be a turtle in a jar. Even if he has a powerful array protection in his hands, I think it will not exceed the strength of the core formation stage. I should be able to break it. Facing Tian Rinja, who suffered a backlash, it will be much easier for me to fight. If these two people don't plan to retreat in this place, then when they leave the cave house, it will be a perfect opportunity for me to sneak attack. I want to kill the other person first, then I will use the Imperial Thunder flying technique to escape far away. Then, relying on Xiao Jin's magical power, I will secretly follow him and wait for the opportunity to injure him. Then, the following battle will be simple. Taking advantage of the fact that there are no cultivators from other sects here, it will be much more convenient for me to make a move. Otherwise, if I encounter people from the top 10 sects, there will inevitably be some variables. Lu Kuan was thinking about ways to deal with Tian Renjia. The purpose of his trip was to kill this person, and only before the other party advanced to the core formation stage, he would have a chance, so he had to be cautious and use the safest method. Although Lu Kuan had the help of a powerful pseudo-magic weapon and his combat power greatly increased, the other party cultivated the famous Red Refining demonic technique of the Red Refining Sect 10,000 years ago. This guy could even fight with a core formation stage cultivator for a short time. His strength was unfathomable. If he wanted to kill the other party, he must first cut off his arm, then seriously injure him with a sneak attack. Finally, he would have a chance in a head-on battle. My advantage is that I'm in the dark. His divine sense can't detect me from 10 miles away, but Xiao Jin can track him. When I get close, I can hide with all my strength. Even core formation cultivators won't be able to detect me. Against such a mortal enemy of body cultivators, I have to be 100% sure that I can kill him. Lu Kuan looked at the little monkey in front of him and said, "Little Gold, recover your spiritual energy and give me directions. I'll control the Silver Dragon spiritual shuttle." Then he saw the spirit shuttle stop. The pseudo-magic weapons that acted as the spine flew out one by one. Among them, the wishful meteoric iron rod and the meteoric thunder rod were exchanged. This time, the meteoric thunder rod entered the depths of the Silver Dragon spirit shuttle, while the wishful meteoric iron rod was at the tip. After reassembling the spine of the Silver Dragon spirit shuttle, Lu Kuan's body surged with mana that was comparable to a mid-foundation establishment stage mana. Under Xiao Jin's guidance, he chased after Tian Renjia at an even faster speed. Soon, the silver dragon spirit shuttle came to a vast red stone forest. As soon as he entered the stone forest, Lu Kuan frowned. He found that the stone forest was a bit strange, but under the scan of his spiritual sense, he didn't find anything wrong. The spiritual energy here was even more vigorous than in other places. Although Lu Kuan's spiritual sense didn't find anything strange, his physical nerves trembled slightly. It was as if some kind of aura in the stone forest could directly oppress his physical body. As the silver dragon spirit shuttle went deeper, the red stone pillars in the stone forest became thicker and taller. Many of them reached more than 100 feet, straight to the silver enchantment. In this way, the depths of the red stone forest were like a natural maze. If it weren't for Xiao Jin's guidance, even if Lu Kuan knew the general direction, he would be lost. The speed of Lu Kuan's silver dragon spirit shuttle in the stone forest was also slowed down due to the obstruction of these tall red stone pillars. In the end, he simply put away the spirit shuttle and pseudo-magic weapons and walked on the ground. According to Xiao Jin's investigation, Tian Renjia and the others also slowed down. It seemed that they were also confused by this maze of stone forest. Because the two red refining sect disciples were slowly looking for the direction in front, Lu Kuan stopped to observe the red stone pillars in the depths of the stone forest. He found that each stone pillar here was more than 10 feet in diameter. The red on the stone pillar was not its color, but it was like the human meridians and blood vessels on the stone pillar. Lu Kuan felt the unique aura of the red blood vessels and couldn't help but put his palm on it. Suddenly, a desolate, cruel, and ferocious aura was transmitted to his physical body. He suddenly broke out in cold sweat and quickly retracted his palm. This feeling is so terrifying. It's as if it's a powerful pressure of a superior. By the way, my spiritual sense power didn't have much reaction to this. Only my physical nerves felt the pressure. Is this the residual blood of some kind of creature with a powerful physical body? That's the only reason why my physical nerves are feeling so strongly. Then, he glanced at the countless red stone pillars, and an indescribable expression appeared on his face. The Demon Island is indeed strange. I flew here from the Spirit Dissension platform and basically didn't see any creatures on the island. There was only an abundance of spiritual energy. Who knows that there are so many red stone pillars here? If they're all poured out of the blood of some terrifying creature, then this creature is either huge or there are a lot of them. Those cultivators must have abandoned the Demon Island with such abundant spiritual energy for some reason. Squeak, squeak. Just as Lu Kuan was thinking, Xiao Jin shouted, "You said they have stopped?" Squeak, squeak. Lu Kuan's face lit up. They are attacking a certain restriction. That means we have arrived. Little Gold, you enter the spirit beast pouch first. I can use the abhijna of concealing my spiritual roots alone. Coupled with the fact that my physical body can restrain my mana, I can approach them stealthily without them noticing. The little monkey nodded and was kept in the spirit beast pouch. Then, Lu Kuan hid his soul in the sea of consciousness. At the same time, he retracted his physical body's mana. At this time, he was just like an ordinary person without any life aura. Then, Lu Kuan released an invisibility spell on himself and disappeared without a trace. He controlled his muscles accurately and did not make the slightest sound. He walked quickly in the direction pointed by Xiao Jin. He bypassed many thick stone pillars and walked for a while. Through the gaps of several stone pillars, he finally saw the two people from the red refining sect. He saw two men in red robes controlling their respective magic tools and attacking the huge red stone pillars in front of them with a diameter of 30 to 40 feet. Chapter 353. Lu Kuan did not pay attention to the restriction on the huge stone pillar. Instead, he carefully observed the weapons of the two opponents with the help of his strong eyesight. He knew that the slightly plump man was another disciple of the red refining sect who was at the great completion of the Foundation establishment realm. He was also the second senior brother mentioned by the man and woman of the red refining sect, Kai Fingyan. Kai Fengyan cultivated the Red Devil technique. According to the information Lu Kuan obtained from the conversation between the man and woman, he could roughly judge that Kai Fengyan's strength was stronger than the ordinary great completion of the Foundation establishment realm. However, he was still far behind the real core senior brother of the top 10 sections. Otherwise, the male cultivator would not covet his demon token quota. At this moment, Kai Fengyan was controlling 2 light red flying needles. The flying needles seemed to contain a unique power. Every time they struck, they would be able to penetrate the restrictions by an inch. This made Lu Kuan think highly of Kai Fengyan. With his attainments in refining, he could tell that this pair of magic tools was a set of level 3 flying needle magic tools. Coupled with the corrosive properties of the Red Devil technique, the penetration power of this pair of flying needles could not be underestimated. If the 2 needles were combined into one and attacked him unexpectedly, it would be a little troublesome. Although it would not pose a threat to him, Lu Kuan was about to fight with Tian Renjia. This trouble was likely to disrupt his attack rhythm. Then he looked at the other middle-aged man, who was the powerful enemy to be killed this time, Tian Renjia. Tian Renjia had his hands behind his back and was controlling a red claw-like magic tool with an indifferent expression. Looking at the reaction of the restriction, he knew that the power of this red claw was much stronger than the 2 needles. What made Lu Kuan feel uneasy was that he could not judge the level of this red claw magic tool with just his eyes. Just as Lu Kuan was observing, the restriction on the stone pillar was quickly broken by the 2 men. Then, 2 spiritual senses gushed out from them and carefully explored the surroundings. Lu Kuan let out a sigh of relief when he sensed the power of the 2 strands of divine sense. He could tell that the strength of these 2 strands of divine sense was only slightly stronger than that of an ordinary Great Circle Foundation establishment cultivator. In other words, their spiritual senses weren't outstanding and were far inferior to a core formation cultivator's. If their spiritual senses were too strong, then Lu Kuan's lightning-quick battle rhythm would be easily followed by his opponents. After Tian Renjia and the others investigated for a while, they didn't seem to find anything unusual. Of course, they didn't notice the existence of Lu Kuan either. The 2 of them set up a new defensive array at the entrance and walked into the stone pillar cave abode. After Lu Kuan saw the 2 of them go in, he cautiously approached them. But before he could get far, he felt the previous divine sense probing him again. This made Lu Kuan curse in his heart. If he hadn't hidden his methods, he might have been discovered by this cunning opponent. After this round of divine sense probing, Lu Kuan continued to wait for a while and then slowly walked forward. He looked at the stone pillar cave abode that Tian Renjia and the others had entered and thought about how to ambush them. There are many stone pillars here, so I can't sneak attack like last time with a saber ray. Moreover, these 2 are at the Great Circle Foundation establishment cultivators. If they are far away, they will definitely have time to defend themselves. I will easily miss a good opportunity. After pondering for a while, Lu Kuan looked around and found that only the entrance of the cave had been set up with restrictions. Above the entrance, which was the part of the cave where the stone pillars were 2 zhang above the ground, there were no restrictions set up with formation arrays. Lu Kuan showed a smile at the corner of his mouth. He jumped lightly and jumped to a height of more than 2 feet. Then his left index finger clasped a small gap in the stone pillar. For the current Lu Kuan, hanging his whole body with only 1 finger was easier than breathing. Then Lu Kuan contracted some of the muscles in his internal organs and slowed down the blood flow in his body to the extreme. After a while, the temperature of his blood also dropped and was no different from the temperature of the surrounding air. This was the weakness that Lu Kuan found after Wang Shitong sensed the vigorous qi and blood in his body. But for him, who had great control over his body, it was easy to find a way to deal with it. As long as he reduced the blood flow to the minimum, the vigorous qi and blood would be restrained. It would be difficult for traditional cultivators to sense it if they were not close. Tian Ren didn't know that there was a strong enemy lying in ambush outside. At this time, he was excitedly reading a jade slip in his hand. At his feet, there was a human-shaped skeleton wearing a tattered robe. Next to the skeleton were some ordinary pills, jade slips, and talismans. There was also a pair of silver hooks. Kai Fengyan looked at the skeleton on the ground and some worthless relics with a rather emotional expression. The skeleton in front of him should be the martial Uncle Xiang that they had mentioned before, who was wholeheartedly studying the red refining devil art. Kai Fengyan had a trace of hope that this martial uncle might have already been a core formation cultivator. However, when he saw the corpse, he knew that this talented martial uncle had failed to reach the core formation stage, even though he had deduced the red refining devil art. Kai Fengyan was not very old. He was only a little over 100 years old. Although it was possible for him to use his remaining lifespan to cultivate the red refining devil art, when he saw the fate of this martial Uncle Xiang, he secretly made up his mind to directly use the abundant spirit chi and the scarlet blood essence pill he had prepared on the Demon Island to break through to the core formation stage. After all, after entering the core formation stage, one's lifespan would reach 500 years. With enough lifespan, one could do more things. Otherwise, one would end up like this martial Uncle Xiang. No matter how powerful the cultivation method was, if one's cultivation couldn't break through, they would become a pile of bones in the end. So that's how it is. Fortunately, I came here first and saw martial Uncle Xiang's letter. Otherwise, even if I prepared well before, I would most likely fail to break through to the core formation stage. Just as Kai Fengyan was in a daze, Tian Renjia had finished reading the contents of the jade slip and said with a happy expression. Hearing this, Kai Fengyan's expression froze. Big senior brother, it can't be. Those blood essences, scarlet blood essence pills, and chain sky pills are all extremely precious treasures. Even so, the probability of advancing to the core formation stage is still so low? Tian Renjia said with emotion, Junior brother, do you know why the red refining devil art is called the red refining devil art? Isn't it because we're called the red refining sect? Seeing his big senior brother shake his head, Kai Fengyan understood. Yes, first there is the cultivation method, then there is the sect, so the name is related to the content of the cultivation method. The two words red refining refer to the refining of blood essence. It can also be said to be the magical power of the cultivation method. We all know this, so the remaining words are devil art. Tian Renjia sighed. The key to the core formation stage of this cultivation method, other than the blood essence, lies in the word devil, and this word has been ignored by me. Kai Fengyan seemed to have thought of something. Does this devil refer to devil chi? Chapter 354. Tian Renjia thought for a while and said, the previous two martial uncles' red refining demonic technique was derived from the red demonic technique. The reason why they didn't think of the role of demonic chi is that although this red demonic technique is called demonic technique, it almost doesn't use demonic chi. Kai Fengyan recalled his 100 years of cultivation and found that it was true. Tian Renjia thought about his own aptitude and said happily, and I can cultivate to this level today. It should be related to my body of demonic marrow. Kai Fengyan suddenly realized, no wonder it is so difficult for the other junior fellow apprentices in the sect to cultivate. They don't use demonic chi to cultivate at all. And junior fellow apprentice Song can advance to the middle stage of foundation establishment because of the help of senior fellow apprentice. It should be the effect of the demonic marrow. Tian Renjia sighed and said, now I finally know why the strength of my red refining sect is getting weaker and weaker. My sect seniors only remember that the red refining demonic technique can easily break through the bottleneck with the help of blood essence, so they moved the sect to the current position. They thought that relying on the overseas land, it would be more convenient to secretly kill the cultivators in the future, but our sect seniors can think of this. How can the 10 major sects not think of it? They know the power of the red refining demonic technique better than us. When they besieged our red refining sect, they must have obtained the authentic red refining demonic technique. They must know that this technique must be assisted by rich demonic chi to cultivate to the great achievement. So when our sect moved to the current position, the 10 major sects didn't stop us because they knew that if there was no demonic chi in the sect, the red refining sect would never return to its peak strength. If so, I even suspect that the red demonic technique that most of the disciples in the sect cultivate is the cultivation method that the 10 major sects led our sect into the wrong path. After all, the Grandmaster cultivated other cultivation methods to condense his nascent soul. As for the martial uncles who cultivate the red demonic technique, they're at most at the middle stage of core formation. Kai Fengyin scratched his head and wondered, but the 10 major sects spent so much effort. Why didn't they directly destroy our red refining sect? Tian Rinja shook his head and said, "This is also something I have never figured out. Maybe the Grandmaster knows a thing or two." Well, don't think so much. Since we already know the role of demonic chi, then my mission is to quickly advance to core formation. After returning to the sect, I will discuss with the Grandmaster whether we should find a secret place with demonic chi as a base for the sect to cultivate new disciples. But eldest senior brother, there is no demon chi on the demon island. Could it be that senior brother wants to wait until we leave the island 3 years later to advance? Tian Rinja looked at the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile, "This is the second precious thing in Martial Uncle Xiang's jade slip. It says that somewhere in the center of the demon island, there is an amazing demon chi. However, this demon chi is wrapped in pure spiritual chi and demon chi. Demonic chi? I almost forgot to tell junior brother. The place where we human cultivators came in is the east of the island, which is basically full of spirit. In the west of the island, many places are filled with demonic chi. In the west, we will also encounter level 4 demonic beasts that rely on the demon token to come in. As for the demonic chi in the central area, Martial Uncle Xiang only discovered it after the island was closed. Moreover, there is a route in the jade slip that can lead directly to the location of the demonic chi. The destination is the intersection of demonic chi and spirit." Tian Rinjia revealed an excited expression and said, "No one else will know about this place. Furthermore, there is demonic energy on one side and spiritual energy on the other. With such a treasure land, it is impossible for my scarlet refining demonic art to fail in forming a core. Then, senior brother, let's go quickly. Okay, as for the other items of Martial Uncle Xiang, you can keep them. The pair of silver hooks seems to be powerful." "Thank you, eldest senior brother." The two of them simply packed up and walked out. This small cave house was not big. The two people of the red refining sect should have chosen this place because it was quite hidden. After all, the disciples of the top 10 sects would go to the central area to find a place for seclusion. The spirit there was much more abundant than here. Tian Rinja glanced at the restriction outside that had not changed. His hands changed gestures and put away this quite powerful array. He called Kai Fengyin and walked out. Tian Rinja suddenly felt that something was wrong when the two of them walked out of the cave residence and were about to summon their flying magic tools. So, he subconsciously stimulated the power of his spiritual sense and carefully probed the surroundings. However, he didn't find anything strange. Kai Fengyin asked strangely, "Senior brother, what's wrong with you?" Tian Rinja frowned and said, "I feel a little uneasy in my heart. I always feel that there are other cultivators nearby, but my divine sense didn't find anything." Kai Fengyin also used his divine sense to explore and said with a smile, "Senior brother, you said that I was paranoid before. There is obviously no one here. Even if Xian Chengzi of the Dao Yi sect is hiding nearby, with senior brother's strength, you will be somewhat aware." Tian Rinja listened to Kai Fengyin's words, and his expression eased. With a flash of light in his hand, a red flying boat appeared in front of him, and he jumped on with Kai Fengyin. Just when Tian Rinja began to make gestures to activate the flying boat, he suddenly felt a powerful threat coming from above them. This threat gave him the feeling of a level 4 peak monster attacking with all its strength. The man's killing intent locked on him. Tian Rinja had lived for more than 200 years now, and his combat experience was not bad. At this time, relying on his profound spiritual power, he instinctively agitated a crimson defensive shield, and at the same time, he calmly changed the gesture in his hand. At the same time, a blood-red big hand rushed into the sky. The senior brother of the red refining sect actually made a defense in an instant, and he also made an instant blood demon hand. Even if the attacker was really a powerful monster, under its defense and counterattack, the sneak attack would be in vain. However, the one who ambushed him was not a demonic beast. Instead, it was Lu Kuan, a body cultivator who was even more terrifying than a Class 4 demonic beast. At the position of the stone pillar where Lu Kuan originally stood, a small pit had appeared. With the help of thunderstorm steps, his speed from top to bottom was extremely fast. His arms were thicker than his thighs, and the blue veins on them were bulging. He directly stimulated the giant arm magical power, making his huge strength close to 100,000 gene. With a 5-feet-long lavender-long rod in his hand, the power was close to the core formation stage cultivator. Lu Kuan looked at the oncoming blood-red big hand, and Tian Renjia, who was ready to take defensive measures and was about to summon his magic weapon. The corner of his mouth slightly raised. Spiritual thought observed the smile on the corner of Lu Kuan's mouth. Tian Renjia's face changed. He suddenly thought of something and was about to open his mouth and shout. Suddenly, a thunderstorm sounded. Lu Kuan's burly body seemed to flash out of thin air, turning in a direction, avoiding the front of the blood-red big hand, and rushing to the side of Tian Renjia. Junior brother, be careful. After a mid-air change of direction and acceleration, the distance of 20 to 30 feet was almost instantly for Lu Kuan. Kai Fengyan, who was next to him, only had time to support a defensive shield in this split second. Chapter 355. Boom! Kai Fengyan, who was hiding behind the shield, immediately felt a huge force coming from the magical power shield. Moreover, at the same time, when the huge stick smashed into his magical power shield, there was also the power of thunder and lightning transmitted into his body. This caused Kai Fengyan's mana to be paralyzed for a moment, interrupting his next step of defense. It was also at this moment that his mana shield of the Great Circle of Foundation establishment burst like a bubble. Kai Fengyan's face was full of disbelief. When this opponent attacked, his divine sense could sense the opponent's early Foundation establishment mana cultivation. He usually didn't take this kind of cultivator seriously. He only held up a mana shield. On one hand, it was because the opponent was too fast. On the other hand, it was because he subconsciously didn't believe in the lethality of early Foundation establishment. Moreover, the opponent attacked his incomparably powerful big senior brother at the beginning. But such a weak cultivator actually changed the direction of his attack halfway and unleashed such a terrifying attack. With just one attack, his defensive shield was broken. The paralyzing force in the attack also interrupted his next step of attack. The result was obvious. Kai Fengyan's stunned expression hadn't disappeared, and the fear in his eyes hadn't appeared. He was turned into ashes by the giant staff surrounded by lightning. Lu Kuan wasn't surprised by this result. After he activated the giant arm theurgy and used the meteoric staff's full strength attack, it was completely comparable to the attack he and Xiao Jin used with the 9 Serenity's remnant claws. It was impossible for the opponent to block it with just a mana shield. After completing this kill, one end of Lu Kuan's meteoric staff fell to the ground. His body was still half a foot off the ground. At this moment, Lu Kuan suddenly smelled a nauseating smell. He used his divine sense to sense it and couldn't help but change his expression. Lightning quickly appeared under his feet. Unfortunately, it was too late to use the thunderstorm step to dodge. 2 blood-red giant hands, twice the size of Lu Kuan, were attacking from the left and right. They grabbed onto Lu Kuan's relatively small figure. The fingers of the 2 giant hands that were like blood mist clasped tightly together, locking together in a death grip. These 2 blood devil's hands were precisely launched by Tian Renjia, while Lu Kuan was attacking Kai Fengyan. Taking advantage of this immortal cultivator, who had a fighting style similar to that of a demon beast, Tian Renjia attacked Kai Fengyan. Tian Renjia looked at the burly man who was caught by the blood demon hand. His face was serious, and he didn't show any sadness about Kai Fengyan's death. Ever since Lu Kuan had appeared, Tian Renjia's divine sense, which was at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, had been firmly locked onto him. With the memory of an immortal cultivator, he naturally remembered that this was the only early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator among the row cultivators. At that time, Tion Rinja had thought that this man had overestimated himself and had come to the Demon Island to deliver the demon token to the disciples of the top 10 sections. However, the strength that the man had displayed in an instant had completely changed his mind. Moreover, this man had been waiting for an opportunity to attack them when they were most relaxed. At first, he had been aggressively attacking Tion Rinja, but who would have thought that he could change the direction of his attack in an instant? It was conceivable that the first target of this man's sneak attack was not Tion Rinja, but Kai Fengyan. If he had rushed to Kai Fengyan from the beginning, given Tion Rinja's strength, he would have definitely stopped him, and this sneak attack would have been in vain. With such strength and scheming, Tion Rinja had directly regarded him as a formidable opponent. These thoughts flashed through Tion Rinja's mind, so he didn't think that the two Blood Devil's hands could kill the opponent. Taking advantage of the Blood Devil's hand's control, he quickly summoned a red claw-like weapon. This red claw-like weapon was like a 2-foot-long human-shaped palm. A cold light flashed on its surface, and it felt like it could easily crush any opponent. With Tion Rinja's hand gestures, the momentum on his body became stronger and stronger. The Blood Devil's claw in midair had also changed. Through the blood-red light, one could vaguely see that the figure inside was holding a long stick in each hand. Then, the stick spun rapidly, and the two sticks gradually emitted a strong purple light, accompanied by bursts of thunder and lightning crackling. The blood-red light of the two Blood Devil's hands slowly dimmed, as if they were about to be scattered by the person inside. At this time, Tion Rinja had finished casting the spell. His whole aura had changed, and his body was emitting an evil red light. Moreover, the red claw in front of him was surrounded by a wave of blood, emitting an even more terrifying aura, as if its real power had been stimulated. Tion Rinja looked at the enemy, who was about to break free from the Blood Devil's hands with a dignified expression. If an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm was caught by the two Blood Devil's hands, it would be very difficult for their defensive barrier to resist the corrosive power of the Blood Devil's hands. Previously, Zhai Xingzi had used the combined attack of a level 3 spiritual immortal treasure to break free from one of the Blood Devil's hands. Now, the combined power of the two Blood Devil's hands was more than twice as strong. However, the person in front of him didn't seem to have a spiritual power barrier, allowing the corrosive power of the Blood Devil's hands to touch his body. Then, he used the strange weapon in his hand to activate a lightning-type magical power to break free from the Blood Devil's hands. This kind of unknown opponent made him feel a bit uneasy. Fortunately, I was cautious and directly activated the pseudo-magic treasure power of the Red Devil's Claw. This time, you're dead. With this thought in mind, Tion Rinja activated the spell in his hand. The red claw in front of him carried a wave of blood and quickly attacked the enemy, who was about to break free. Fortunately, at this moment, Lu Kuan's two long rods spun and shattered the two blood demon hands. Feeling the powerful attack power of the red claws, a spirit light flashed in his hands, and the two meteorite rods suddenly became shorter. Then Lu Kuan's arms quickly danced, and the two rods attacked the terrifyingly powerful weapon at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, lightning flashed under his feet and his body retreated. It turned out that he was relying on the frequency of his attacks to try and exhaust the power of the red claw. Seeing this in the distance, Tion Rinja snorted coldly. A strong bloody aura emerged from his body. He made some kind of gesture with his hand, and then a bigger palm appeared on his crimson demon claw pseudo-magic weapon. It was completely composed of blood-colored spiritual light. This palm was the same size as the Blood Devil's hand from before, but it was more solid. The corrosive aura on it shocked Lu Kuan. After the palm appeared, the solid fingers immediately bent and wanted to grab Lu Kuan, who was attacking the red claw. Lu Kuan's expression changed. He had just broken free from the Blood Devil's claw and knew its power. If he was trapped in this new palm, it would be dangerous. So, Lu Kuan activated his body's magic power and poured it into the two rods in his hands. Then, the two rods suddenly became more than 10 feet long and blocked the red claw at the same time. Lu Kuan used his full strength. Although he didn't have the 100,000 kilograms of strength of the giant arm, the 60,000 kilograms of strength combined with the rods sent the greatly weakened red claw flying. Boom! Chapter 356. Just now in the fight, Lu Kuan was unknowingly repelled by Tian Renjia more than 10 feet away. It could be seen that the senior fellow apprentice of the Red Refining Sect had rich combat experience. He noticed that Lu Kuan could change direction in the air, so he estimated that his speed on the ground was also very amazing. Therefore, the two attacks had widened the distance between the two sides. Lu Kuan looked at Tian Renjia, who retracted the red claw in front of him, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said in a hoarse voice, I heard from the cultivators outside that the strength and aptitude of the Red Refining Sect senior fellow apprentice are extremely ordinary. It took nearly 200 years to cultivate to the great perfection stage. I didn't expect fellow Taoists to be so powerful that you can even control the pseudo-magic weapon freely. It seems that the outside world has a big misunderstanding of the Red Refining Sect. In my opinion, fellow Taoist is not weak compared to the senior fellow apprentice of the top 10 sects. When Tian Renjia heard that his opponent could still speak calmly without any signs of injury, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He put the red demon claw in front of him, and at the same time locked the storage bag on his waist with his divine sense, and sneered, "The cultivators outside are right. My strength is quite ordinary." Otherwise, in the face of fellow Taoist, a cultivator in the early stage of the Foundation establishment, I wouldn't have watched fellow Taoist kill my junior fellow apprentice, and I couldn't do anything. It can be seen that the cultivation of the great perfection stage of the Foundation establishment is just a facade. Lu Kuan shook his head and said, "Fellow Taoist Tian really knows how to joke." In the fight just now, I found that the power of fellow Taoist Blood Demon Claw is amazing. It is much stronger than the ordinary Red Demon Technique. Is it the legendary Red Refining Demon Technique? When Tian Renjia heard the words, his pupils shrank for a while. He looked at Lu Kuan, who slowly walked forward a few steps and took a few steps back without showing a trace. He laughed and said, "Haha, fellow Taoist is better at joking than I am. If it's the Red Refining Demon Technique, why would I come to this demon island to break through the bottleneck? I just need to collect enough essence and blood, and I can easily form my core." Lu Kuan looked at Tian Renjia, so cautious that the distance between them was pulled back again. He was a little depressed in his heart. Seeing Tian Renjia deny it, he said, "Oh, I heard that fellow Taoists came to this demon island to make the Red Refining Demon Technique to advance to the core stage. And the cave house that two fellow Taoists just entered must have a great origin." When Tian Renjia heard Lu Kuan's words, killing intent immediately rose in his heart. However, on the surface, he was very surprised and said, "Where did fellow Taoist hear this news? Can you tell me that my sect's Red Refining Demon Technique has been lost? If fellow Taoist information can provide clues, you will definitely be the benefactor of my Red Refining Sect." Lu Kuan cursed in his heart. He just fought with the other party and felt that the other party's magic technique and weapon were extremely extraordinary. It was really difficult for him to kill the other party in a head-on fight. Therefore, he had some thoughts of retreating and planned to find another opportunity to sneak attack the other party. Tian Renjia saw that Lu Kuan was a little distracted. His eyes flashed, and he patted his waist. Suddenly, a badger-shaped demon beast appeared on the ground. It was about half the height of a person. Its entire back was covered in dark red hair, and the rest of its body was black. The hair on its entire body was very dark. Its head was completely black and formed a triangular shape. The most eye-catching thing about this demon beast was its exaggerated sharp claws. The length of each claw was about the same as the length of the soles of its feet, but the color of these claws was completely red. It exuded the demon chi of a peak level 3 demon beast, and the threat it gave people was no less than any peak level 4 demon beast. Fierce Badger Beast. Lu Kuan recognized the big cat-like demon beast in front of him at a glance. It was the fierce badger beast that he fought hard with in the Spirit Demon Valley. However, The one in front of him had the aura of a level 3 demon beast, which was many times stronger than the peak level 1 demon beast. Moreover, Lu Kuan observed that the back and claws of this fierce badger beast were dark red. It could be seen that it had something to do with the other party's red refining demon technique. When Tian Renjia heard Lu Kuan say the name of this demon beast, he couldn't help but smile and said, "It seems that fellow Taoist also knows the fierce badger beast. You must know that a peak level 3 fierce badger beast strength is no less than a cultivator at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Even an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the foundation establishment stage might not necessarily be its opponent. It's also because fellow Taoist is powerful that I have no choice but to find a helper." After Lu Kuan heard this, he also smiled and said, "Hee, fellow Taoist found a helper, and I also found one." As he spoke, Lu Kuan patted the spirit beast at his waist, and a little monkey appeared in front of him. When the opponent's fierce badger beast appeared, it stared at the little monkey, causing the monkey hair on Xiao Jin's body to stand up. Xiao Jin naturally remembered the fierce badger beast's terrifying fighting strength. The monkey's face showed a serious expression. It clenched its claws into fists and beat its chest. With a roar, it turned into the size of an ordinary person and emitted a powerful demon chi. Tian Renjia said in surprise, "I didn't expect fellow Taoist to also have a spirit beast. However, this demon monkey is only at the level of a second-level monster beast. Even if its aura is comparable to that of a third-level monster beast, it is still far from my fierce badger beast." Lu Kuan's hand flashed with light as he summoned the wishful meteoric iron staff and threw it at Xiao Jin. He said, "I'm only at the early stage of the foundation establishment stage. Compared to fellow Taoist cultivation, I am far inferior. Since fellow Taoist wants to continue fighting with me, then I will accompany you for a while." As soon as his voice fell, Xiao Jin, who was holding the wishful meteoric iron staff, rushed towards the fierce badger beast with a yellow light flashing under his feet. When the fierce badger beast saw that this second-level monster beast dared to take the initiative to attack, it let out an angry roar. A dark red light flashed under its feet as it rushed towards Xiao Jin at a speed faster than the little monkey. Soon, the two monster beasts were engaged in a fierce battle. At this time, Lu Kuan let go of the meteoric iron staff in his hand and let it float in front of him. His other two pseudo-magic weapons suddenly appeared in his hands, the falling thunderballs. Fellow Taoist blood demon hand is really not simple. Next, I invite fellow Taoist Tian to taste my falling thunderballs. As he spoke, the electric light on Lu Kuan's arm had already climbed onto the falling thunderballs. Then, he suddenly exerted force with his left and right hands. The two falling thunderballs were like a powerful thunder spell, attacking Tian Renjia with the momentum to shatter everything. Then, Lu Kuan grabbed the meteoric iron staff and ran the thunderous explosion steps, rushing forward like lightning. Tian Renjia had been vigilant and ignored the monster beast that had started fighting. In the face of Lu Kuan's attack, he immediately took countermeasures. A blood-red light flashed on his body as he summoned the blood demon hand in front of the pseudo-magic weapon, the crimson demon claw, and blocked the two falling thunderballs thrown by Lu Kuan. Chi-chi. After the falling thunderballs smashed into the blood demon hand, there was a harsh sound of burning oil. When he looked again, he found that there were two holes in the middle of the blood demon hand. The two falling thunderballs directly penetrated the blood demon hand and were then blocked by the crimson demon claw. Feeling the terrifying power coming from the crimson demon claw, even if Tian Renjia's spiritual power was strong, his body still felt a little uncomfortable with this power. Chapter 357. Just as the scarlet demon claw was about to clench into a fist, the two thunderballs suddenly shrunk by more than half and flew out of the gap between the scarlet demon claw, floating towards Lu Kuan. After Tian Renjia saw the change in the thunderballs, his expression changed slightly. He thought of the change in the size of the opponent's long staff magic tool when they were fighting before. Coupled with the situation of the two thunderballs, he knew that the opponent's weapon was refined from some kind of special material and had a strange magical ability. However, He didn't associate this magic tool with a pseudo-magic weapon. Although the opponent's magic tool could temporarily resist his pseudo-magic weapon, no matter how strong the opponent's attack power was, his magical power was only at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. It was impossible for him to activate a pseudo-magic weapon. Moreover, after the attack of the two Thunderballs, Tian Renjia also understood that the reason why the opponent was so strong was entirely because of his terrifying strength. Even his peak level 3 Fierce Badger was far inferior to him. Just as these thoughts flashed through Tian Renjia's mind, the running Lu Kuan made a new move. The two purple-black long staffs in his hands suddenly shrunk by more than half and became two short staffs in his hands. At the same time, a glaring purple light appeared under his feet. His body that was originally sprinting forward suddenly stopped. The speed that was faster than an arrow was instantly transformed into a rotational force, making his body spin in place. Tian Renjia was dumbstruck, not far away. He simply couldn't imagine how a person's body could change its movements so freely. Even if it was a monster with a powerful physical body, it was impossible to stop the inertia of sprinting so quickly, let alone transform it into a rotational force. Tian Renjia saw the human whirlwind that was madly spinning with the short staffs, coupled with the terrifying strength of the Thunderballs before, and suddenly thought of something. He impatiently continued to make hand seals. At this time, the first falling Thunderball floated into Lu Kuan's human whirlwind. Suddenly, the sound of air exploding was heard, as if something terrifying was tearing the space apart. Dang! Two incomparably hard pieces of steel collided, producing an ear-piercing sound. A Thunderball smashed into the Crimson Demon Claw, which had already clenched into a fist. This Thunderball attack was much more powerful than the one Lu Kuan threw with his bare hands. The Scarlet Demon Claw was, after all, a pseudo-magic treasure. Moreover, it had already been clenched into a fist. Its defensive power was much stronger than before. Under the bombardment of the falling lightning ball, the blood-red light on the surface was only slightly scattered by the lightning power of the falling lightning ball, but the power contained in the falling lightning ball caused it to retreat nearly 3 meters. If it weren't for Tian Renjia cautiously keeping the Scarlet Demon Claw away from his body, he might have been hit by his own pseudo-magic weapon. Fortunately, at this moment, Tian Renjia finished casting the spell. A blood-colored hand appeared on the Scarlet Demon Claw. This hand was like the pseudo-magic treasure. It clenched into a fist and wrapped around the Scarlet Demon Claw, causing it to shine brightly. After the first lightning ball struck, it retreated, and its speed was much slower than before. Clang! There was another loud bang. At this moment, the second Thunderball was also shot out from Lu Kuan's humanoid whirlwind. It was mixed with a faint purple lightning and heavily hit the Scarlet Demon Claw. However, this time, the Scarlet Demon Claw was wrapped by the blood-colored hand, and its power was strengthened a lot. Apart from retreating a meter, the blood-colored light didn't change much. Dang! The third Thunderball continued to attack. It turned out that in the gap between the second Thunderball's attack, the first Thunderball had already returned to Lu Kuan's humanoid whirlwind and was bombarded by his rotating short stick. It continued to smash into the Scarlet Demon Claw's fist. Tian Renjia's expression was extremely unsightly. At this time, he finally discovered the terror of this opponent. Even a Great Circle Foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to use this kind of attack too many times. This person could actually continuously release such a terrifying attack close to the core formation stage. The stronger the attack, the greater the consumption of magic power. If an ordinary cultivator were to use this kind of attack several times, their magic power would quickly reach the bottom. However, this mysterious early Foundation establishment cultivator in front of Tian Renjia was completely relying on the terrifying power within his body to display such a level of attack. However, Tian Renjia didn't have the slightest idea how long this terrifying power could be used and when his opponent's strength would be exhausted. He relied on the peculiar magic power of the Scarlet Demon Claw to be able to display the powerful might of the Scarlet Demon Claw. Whether it was its defensive or offensive power, it was close to the core formation stage. This was the reason why he could exchange a few moves with a core formation stage cultivator. However, for him, this way, his magic power will be consumed very quickly. Although he was able to resist the opponent's continuous bombardment, his magic power couldn't maintain this kind of power for too long. He was using his limited magic power to resist the opponent's seemingly bottomless brute force. It was extremely dangerous. Just as Tion Renjia was trying his best to resist the opponent's continuous lightning ball attacks while thinking about how to escape, a discordant cracking sound was suddenly heard. Tion Renjia's spiritual sense probed forward, his face full of horror, as if he had seen a ghost. Impossible! How could the Scarlet Demon Claw be like this? He shouted with a face full of horror, completely without his previous calm expression. He saw that in the fist of the Scarlet Demon Claw, a small crack had appeared on the knuckle of the middle finger. This weapon that could be called a pseudo-magic weapon was actually cracked. Tion Renjia stared fixedly at the opponent's lightning balls that were still attacking and said in disbelief, "Only a pseudo-magic weapon or above can break my Scarlet Demon Claw. Don't tell me that your lightning balls are pseudo-magic weapons. But how can you control a pseudo-magic weapon? Your magic power is only at the early foundation establishment stage." Lu Kuan didn't answer this person's doubts. Instead, he continued to spin crazily, making the alternating lightning balls attack even faster. After 2 more attacks, the cracks on the Scarlet Demon Claw became even clearer. Tion Renjia felt the magic power in his body and looked at the cracks on the Scarlet Demon Claw again. He no longer hesitated and madly urged the magic power in his body. He barely managed to cast a Blood Demon Hand on the Scarlet Demon Claw. At the same time, he took out a blood-red talisman. He chanted an incantation and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the talisman. Then, he threw the talisman at it, towards the rapidly spinning Lu Kuan. Although Lu Kuan was spinning rapidly, his spiritual sense was constantly observing the surrounding movements. Seeing this scene, of course, he wasn't willing to let this talisman go. When he got closer, he would throw the next lightning ball at this talisman. Who knew about this talisman? The talisman exploded when it was hit by the lightning ball. A strange scarlet fog spread out, enveloping Lu Kuan, who was spinning. Huh? This fog? After the scarlet fog enveloped Lu Kuan, it was unknown what kind of ability it had, but it stopped Lu Kuan's spinning body. At this time, a dark red figure quickly rushed out from the side. It was the fierce badger beast that was fighting with Xiao Jin. This terrifying beast's fur was a bit messy, but it didn't seem to be injured. The ferocious badger beast looked at the human figure in the thick fog, and the dark red claws on its front paws emitted a burst of light. Then, a few rays of light suddenly flashed, and the sharp claws actually fell off from the ferocious badger beast's body. Its speed was a bit faster than Lu Kuan's lightning ball, and it carried an extremely sharp aura as it directly hit the red fog. At the same time, Tion Renjia gasped for breath. The blood-red light on his body quickly dimmed. Chapter 358. Just after Tion Renjia left for a while, the crimson mist suddenly surged violently, and the faint sound of wind and thunder came from inside. Boom! The crimson mist seemed to be dispersed by some powerful force, revealing the figure inside. Lu Kuan stood firmly on the ground, spinning a giant rod longer than a person in his hand. He grabbed the entire rod in the middle with both hands, which was wrapped in a layer of purple-black substance. On both sides of the middle was a silver rod, and outside was also a layer of purple-black substance. The purple-black substance at both ends was also wrapped in 2 medium-sized thunderballs. After the mist dissipated, Lu Kuan's hand shook for a while, and the strange giant rod was divided into 4, turning into his 2 meteorite rods and 2 thunderballs. Looking at his body again, his clothes were tattered, and the red blood vessels appeared on his skin due to the rapid use of the Imperial Thunder flying technique. In addition, there were many red palm prints on his body, which looked a bit horrifying. Compared with these palm prints, the scraped flesh on his arm was not so eye-catching. Lu Kuan looked at the scars on his body and said with some emotion, "This guy's strength is really strong. He can definitely exchange a few moves with a core formation stage cultivator." Just now, Lu Kuan rotated his body, and with the strength of his legs and waist, he blasted out more than 10 terrifying thunderballs. Such a high-intensity burst of power had completely exhausted his physical strength. The eldest senior brother of the Scarlet Refining Sect was actually able to withstand such a continuous attack. In the end, in order to break the opponent's pseudo-magic weapon, he had to overdraw his body muscles, causing the pressure on his blood vessels to increase greatly. Even if Tion Renja didn't escape, he couldn't continue to maintain it. As for the strange talisman that Tion Renja threw out later, was it an intermediate top rank talisman? However, this spell should be related to the red refining demonic technique, which was a kind of trapping array. When the crimson fog enveloped Lu Kuan, countless small crimson hands appeared in the fog and pressed down on his body. Although many of the small hands are destroyed by the force of his rotation, there was no way to stop them from appearing continuously. In the end, Lu Kuan could only be held in place by countless small hands. Soon after, the fierce badger's sharp claws rushed in. These claws were incomparably sharp. Even if Lu Kuan's fleshly body could withstand a mid-grade, top-grade offensive talisman, it would be impossible for him to withstand it. His skin was also cut by the sharp claws. Even the fascia outside the muscles of his arm was cut. Lu Kuan, who had overdrawn his physical strength, was unable to break free from this spell for a while. He had no choice but to use the last trick of his pseudo-magic treasure, which was to insert the 2 meteorite rods and the 2 thunderball balls together through the slot at the end. The power of his pseudo-magical weapons was completely dependent on the amount of the main material, the silver dragon meteorite iron. When the 4 pseudo-magical weapons were combined together, the power reached the maximum. Lu Kuan used the purple-black layer in the middle to control the combined giant rods. With the help of some strength, he rotated them. Relying on the power of the combined pseudo-magical weapons, coupled with the power of his thunder and lightning, he quickly expelled this top-grade control spell. Humph! I really can't use ordinary pseudo-magical weapons. However, my Yang clan's psychic puppet technique is extensive and profound. After the control array inside has been modified, even a flying magical weapon like the Silver Dragon flying boat can be controlled by a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator. It's also a pseudo-magical weapon refined from the Silver Dragon meteorite iron. After engraving the relevant array, I have no problem controlling it. However, I'm still relying on the powerful material and special ability of the Silver Dragon meteorite iron to exert my power to the extreme. It's not surprising that I was able to break Tion Renja's pseudo-magical weapon. Lu Kuan recalled the previous battle, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said to himself, although I didn't seriously injure Tion Renja this time, his pseudo-magical weapon was greatly damaged, and his strength has decreased a lot. I should be able to defeat him with another sneak attack. Then Lu Kuan frowned and said, but that fierce badger is still a bit troublesome. By the way, Xiao Jin, Lu Kuan suddenly remembered the little monkey who was fighting with the fierce badger. He turned his head and saw Xiao Jin sitting on the ground with a depressed expression, holding the 2 wishful meteorite iron rods in his hands. In addition to Xiao Jin's messy hair, there were only a few wounds on his skin. However, these wounds were slowly healing, and the demonic spiritual power in his body was relatively abundant. It seemed that he had only suffered some minor injuries. Seeing Xiao Jin's depressed expression, Lu Kuan, who had the same bloodline as him, immediately knew what he was thinking. He couldn't help but laugh and said, Xiao Jin, you were at a disadvantage in the battle just now. Are you angry? Squeak. Xiao Jin responded somewhat weakly. Ha, you little monkey, it's not like you don't know the talent of the fierce badger. Just the defensive power of its fur is much stronger than yours. Moreover, it is a peak level 3 demonic beast. Its demonic spiritual power is much stronger than yours. You are only a level 2 demonic beast. There is still a little distance between you and the peak of level 2. Fighting with such a fierce demonic beast, you are only at a disadvantage. That's already very impressive. Xiao Jin tilted his head and looked at Lu Kuan. He called out with some uncertainty, Squeak. How about this? We will track them in a while. That fierce badger will be left to you to practice. Maybe if you fight with it a few more times, your combat experience will increase a lot. After all, You have been fighting with human cultivators all these years. You are seriously lacking in combat experience with demonic beasts. We still have to explore the sea in the future. Squeak. Lu Kuan's golden eyes flashed as he looked in the direction where Tian Renjia escaped. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile as he said, "This guy should be injured as well." Even if he managed to block the falling lightning balls, and the Scarlet Demon Claw managed to block my lightning energy, the power of those dozen or so rounds is definitely not easy to bear. Lu Kuan waved his hand and took the 2 storage bags from Kai Fengyan, who was not far away, into his hand. He weighed them and used his divine sense to explore them. He revealed a happy expression and said, "Just as I expected, they have a lot of blood-clotting grass. Moreover, the age is not low. If Tian Renjia also has this amount, I can finish inscribing the body-spirit controlling array." After putting away the storage bags, he took out the silver dragon spirit shuttle. Xiao Jin very cleverly inserted the wishful cloud iron rod into it, and then Lu Kuan also combined the pseudo-magical treasures into the spirit shuttle. Tian Renjia still doesn't know that I have such a terrifying flying treasure. Moreover, this guy thinks that I was injured by the fierce badger's last attack and can't chase after in time. He should be looking for a place to heal. After Lu Kuan jumped on the flying boat, Xiao Jin skillfully controlled the treasure and flew in a direction. Lu Kuan sat cross-legged on the flying boat and operated his cultivation method to relieve the damage caused by the pressure on his blood vessels. At this time, Tian Renjia had already flown to the edge of the redstone forest. He controlled the flying boat while swallowing a few red pills to heal his injuries. He also placed the fierce badger in the flying boat as a guard. After a while, Tian Renjia slowly opened his eyes and couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of congested blood. Because of this, his complexion also eased a bit. Damn it, where did this guy come from? Even though he's using a pseudo-magic treasure, he's still able to injure my internal organs. If I were to use other magic treasures to block it, even if I could block that pair of lightning balls, I would still be severely injured by the terrifying power. Then, with a flash of light in Tian Renjia's hand, he took out the Scarlet Demon Claw. At this time, the Scarlet Demon Claw's luster was slightly dim and the cracks on it were incomparably clear. Tian Renjia urged the magic power in his body and slowly poured it into the Scarlet Demon Claw. The Scarlet Demon Claw gradually emitted a bright light. Crack! Suddenly, the light on the Scarlet Demon Claw dimmed again. Chapter 359. In a place near the center of the Demon Island, a square-faced man was flying in the sky. His speed was extremely fast, faster than normal Peak Foundation establishment cultivators. If one looked closely, they would find that this person didn't seem to be using a flying magic tool. Only core formation cultivators could fly. However, this was the Demon Island. Core formation cultivators simply couldn't come to this place. This could only mean that this cultivator was a Foundation establishment cultivator with amazing magical powers. The square-faced man had a calm expression as he flew. He wore a loose gray robe, and a golden chain-like chain could be vaguely seen hanging around his neck. His escape light exuded a faint golden light. Oomph! The 10 great sects of Chu are even more overbearing than the Shangqing sect. They want to kill all the other cultivators that come here. A hint of disdain appeared on the square-faced man's face again. He glanced behind him where no one was following him and sneered. I, Xiao Hongfei, have now reached the peak of Foundation establishment. My strength is much stronger than before. My spiritual power is showing signs of crystallization. My spiritual sense has reached the early stage of core formation. These guys are really courting death by chasing me. It turned out that this square-faced man was Xiao Hongfei, who had escaped after completing a mission on his own during the battle at the Shangqing sect. No one knew when he had broken through to the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm and reached the perfected Foundation establishment realm. Furthermore, he had come to this Demon Island. That Xian Xingzi's spiritual sense is not weak. He noticed my strength first and didn't have any intention of chasing me. Otherwise, even his Daoyi sect would have lost some people like the Golden Spear sect. Xiao Hongfei recalled the brief exchange of blows just now, and a hint of pride appeared on his face. After all, he was able to severely injure several perfected Foundation establishment cultivators. Such strength was not inferior to anyone on the Demon Island. But the Golden Spear sect's joint attack is strange. Under the pressure of my powerful spiritual sense, they can still display great power. Otherwise, these people would have been killed by me. After muttering to himself for a while, Xiao Hongfei felt the rich spirit qi in the surroundings and revealed a look of enjoyment. Fortunately, I've read about the situation of the Demon Island in the relevant ancient records of the sect. Otherwise, even if I had the pure magic power of the crystallization stage and the power of my spiritual sense has reached the level of the early core formation stage, it would be extremely difficult to condense a gold core using the ancient core formation method. Xiao Hongfei's face revealed a look of reminiscence as he said, I, Xiao Hongfei, have cultivated from the qi condensation stage to the great circle of Foundation establishment for more than 190 years. I have never taken any medicinal pills that could increase my cultivation. Forcefully absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to cultivate, repeatedly refining his mana, and even thinking of ways to raise his consciousness to such a level. I really can't remember how much suffering he had gone through. Now, with the extremely rich spiritual qi of the Demon Island and the assistance of the Heavenly Change Pill, the success rate of using the ancient core formation method is at least close to 50%. There's still a lot of risk with this probability. Xiao Hongfei muttered to himself and then fell into deep thought. Suddenly, the face of the former Foundation establishment senior brother of the Shangqing sect changed, and he said in a deep voice, which fellow Taoist is hiding in the side? Why don't you come out and meet me? As he spoke, Xiao Hongfei raised his hands, and on each of his wrists, which were hidden in his robe, was a Vajra ring magic tool. Under his control, the pair of magic tools slightly expanded a little. Carrying a fierce aura, they attacked an empty space behind him, one in front and one behind him. The two Vajra rings shone brightly. Under the stimulation of Xiao Hongfei's extremely pure magic power, their imposing manner was incomparably shocking, as if they were displaying the greatest power of a level 3 spiritual immortal tool. As the Vajra rings approached that empty space, a green light appeared, and it seemed to easily dodge the two magic tools. Seeing this, Xiao Hongfei coldly snorted. A golden light flashed on his feet. It turned out that there were still two Vajra rings on his ankles. At this time, under the stimulation of his magic power, they flew out very flexibly, just like the previous Vajra rings. At the same time, Xiao Hongfei's divine sense, which was comparable to the early core formation stage, was fully stimulated by him. With a crushing momentum, it pressed down on the unfamiliar cultivator in front of him, flashing with green light. Under the influence of the core formation stage divine sense, the green silhouette's body suddenly stopped. It was as if he was affected by the divine sense, and in that moment, he was surrounded by 4 extremely agile Vajra rings. Seeing this, the green light figure didn't panic at all. With a chuckle, he threw a talisman forward. This talisman? In an instant, it turned into a sharp wind blade. Sensing this wind blade, Xiao Hongfei's expression changed slightly. With his powerful divine sense, he could easily determine that this wind blade was a peak intermediate wind magic tool. Its power was stronger than a single Vajra ring. As expected, one of the Vajra rings was directly sent flying by this wind blade. Soon after, the green light figure turned into a green light and flashed out of the encirclement. Fellow Taoist Xiao, I trust you have been well since we last met. I'm not here to deal with you. After this green light left the encirclement of the Vajra rings, the green light dissipated, revealing a young, ordinary face. This young man wore a green robe, and his face revealed a faint smile as he looked at the somewhat stunned Xiao Hongfei. Xiao Hongfei saw this person's appearance and felt that his body carried a bit of wind magic tool. He was somewhat uncertain as he said, "You are the Philostikis?" The green-robed man nodded and said, "I didn't expect you to recognize me. What an honor." Seeing that this person was indeed the Philostikis he knew, Xiao Hongfei retracted the Vajra rings and put them back on his wrists and ankles. He looked at the Philostikis who could fly in the air like him and was somewhat puzzled. I'm quite familiar with fellow Golden Peak. Of course, I've heard him mention the Heavenly Talisman Sect's Foundation Establishment Senior Brother. But why did you follow me? I remember that your Heavenly Talisman Sect surrounded and killed the remaining loose cultivators at the Spirit descending platform. Philostikis said, those loose cultivators were very easy to deal with. However, 3 of them weren't simple and managed to escape. Xiao Hongfei was slightly surprised and said, there are such people among the loose cultivators? Philostikis explained, 2 of them were core disciples of the Scarlet Sect. Their Scarlet demonic technique was somewhat powerful. They attacked first and broke through at the Star Moon Pavilion. So they were disciples of the Scarlet Sect. Then the remaining one is also a disciple of some sect? Philostikis revealed a somewhat meaningful expression and said, that's right. This person is indeed a disciple of a sect. However, his sect is not in my Chu country. As the senior brother of the Shangqing sect, Xiao Hongfei saw the change in Philostikis' expression at a glance. His eyes flashed with surprise and said, if it's not in Chu country, could it be a sect in Wei country? Philostikis laughed and said, fellow Xiao is indeed powerful. That's right. This person is indeed a disciple of the Yang clan. Xiao Hongfei said in surprise, Yang clan? The Yang clan's fate is even more miserable than our Shangqing sect. The entire clan has been annihilated. I didn't expect the remaining disciples to escape here. Chapter 360. Philostikis said with some emotion, I wasn't too sure at first, but this person's fighting style is completely different from ordinary cultivators. He actually used his physical body to throw weapons to attack. With his early foundation establishment cultivation, he actually suppressed Star Moon Pavilion's Zhai Xingzi for a short period of time. My junior sister also fought with him before. She knows that the reason why this person's attack power is so strong is because his physical strength is shockingly strong. Xiao Hongfei said without hesitation, the physical strength is Lu Kuan of the Yang clan. Philostikis said with surprise, so fellow Taoist Xiao knows this person. Xiao Hongfei looked at Philostikis' surprised expression and seemed to have understood something. He said indifferently, fellow Taoist Feng seems to know a lot about the Yang clan. Could it be that you've taken a fancy to their psychic puppet technique? Philostikis admitted openly, that's right. The Yang clan's strength is not enough. They can't protect such a treasure. If our Heavenly Talisman sect obtains it, we'll have one more artifact refining technique. This is something that Chu country lacks the most. I've already received news that the Yang clan's psychic puppet technique is in the hands of their surviving disciples. Xiao Hongfei looked at him deeply and said, in that case, fellow Taoist is looking for me to inquire about Lu Kuan. Philostikis shook his head and said, this person's strength is not weak. When he escaped, the escape technique he displayed was very shocking. I'm not 100% sure that I can defeat him. I'm looking for fellow Taoist Xiao not only to inquire about this person's situation, but also to ask for fellow Taoist's help. Xiao Hongfei narrowed his eyes and said, although my friendship with Golden Peak is not bad, if I want to help fellow Taoists deal with a strong enemy, Philostikis obviously knew what Xiao Hongfei meant. He interrupted, Philostikis, will not take advantage of fellow Taoist. I'll use a treasure in exchange for fellow Taoist's help. Philostikis said this with a firm tone, as if this treasure would definitely make Xiao Hongfei help. Xiao Hongfei showed some interest and said, fellow Taoist Feng knows that I'm from the Shangqing sect. Ordinary things don't interest me. Fellow Taoist confidence makes me curious. Feng Lingzi did not answer directly. Instead, he asked, fellow Taoist, I see that your magic power is extremely pure and your spiritual sense is comparable to that of an early core formation cultivator. In addition, you paid a hefty price to obtain the demon token. Looks like he wants to use the legendary ancient core formation method to condense his golden core. Xiao Hongfei said without batting an eyelid. So what if I do? Feng Lingzi continued. The ancient core formation method is kept in many large sections. I have checked it before and found it to be extremely difficult. Even though the purity of your mana and the strength of your consciousness have met the requirements, Taoist friend, you still have not succeeded. With the help of the extremely rich spiritual chi here, your chances of forming a golden core are probably no more than 50%. I know that the golden core formation method requires the soul. If it's slightly lacking, the last step will be very difficult to complete. Philosthenes then took out a pill bottle and said with a smile, I have a soul accumulation pill here. Ordinary foundation establishment cultivators can't take it, but with fellow Taoist soul at the early core formation stage, you can definitely withstand it. Xiao Hongfei's originally calm face immediately revealed a look of pleasant surprise after hearing the words soul accumulation pill. Is it really the soul accumulation pill? The pill that can temporarily increase the soul accumulation pill of the core formation stage? Philosthenes saw Xiao Hongfei's reaction and his smile became even more brilliant. That's right. Although fellow Taoist Xiao used to be the foundation establishment senior brother of the Shangqing sect, it's still very difficult to obtain a core formation pill of this level. Xiao Hongfei didn't continue speaking after hearing this. Instead, he looked at Philosthenes in front of him in silence. The soul accumulation pill on his body fluctuated slightly. Philosthenes' smile didn't change. He appeared very calm. However, he secretly held two talismans in his hands that were flickering with green light. After a short while, Xiao Hongfei's soul accumulation pill calmed down. He said, Okay, I agree. However, both of us must swear a soul oath. In this core formation stage, a soul oath is the safest. Philosthenes agreed without hesitation. Then, the two of them swore a soul oath. The content was that Xiao Hongfei and Philosthenes would work together to kill Lu Kuan. During this period, the two of them were not to fight. After killing Lu Kuan, Xiao Hongfei would obtain Philosthenes' soul accumulation pill. Philosthenes would obtain the method to refine sentient puppets. 70% of the remaining items in Lu Kuan's storage bag would belong to Xiao Hongfei and 30% to Philosthenes. After the soul oath was completed, the atmosphere between the two of them clearly eased a lot. Xiao Hongfei asked, fellow Taoist Feng, although I'm sure that person is Lu Kuan, the demon island is so big. It won't be easy to find him. Philosthenes said, if it was someone else, it would indeed be difficult. However, for me, it's actually quite simple. Xiao Hongfei thought of something and said in surprise, that's right. I haven't asked you how you found me. You must know that fellow Taoist Feng killed a rogue cultivator before chasing after me. You must have a precise location. Philosthenes smiled mysteriously and patted his waist. Suddenly, a white rat with a fat head and a big nose appeared in his palm. This rat was only the size of a palm. However, the demonic spiritual energy on its body was quite dense. It had the cultivation of a class 4 demonic beast. Xiao Hongfei carefully sized up this demonic rat's huge nose and combined it with the fact that he was being tracked. He said with some uncertainty, fellow Taoist Feng, this isn't the legendary ancient demonic beast, the heavenly spirit rat, right? Philosthenes shook his head and said, the heavenly spirit rat is an ancient demonic beast. It's born with an extremely strong sense of the spiritual energy of all kinds of cultivators. The range of its senses is shockingly wide. However, these ancient demonic beasts seem to have disappeared. Then, he revealed a somewhat proud expression and said, although mine isn't a heavenly spirit rat, it still has a few traces of the heavenly spirit rat's bloodline. It doesn't have the terrifying magical power of the heavenly spirit rat, but it has a very strong sense of special spiritual energy. Fellow Taoist Zhao's spiritual energy is of the metal attribute, but the purity of his spiritual energy should be the highest among the cultivators on the demon island. My little spirit rat can barely sense it. On the other hand, Lu Kuan's spiritual energy is of the thunder attribute. Even if he has some kind of concealment technique, as long as he uses his spiritual energy on the demon island, my little spirit rat will be able to track his footsteps. Thunder attribute spiritual energy? A trace of doubt flashed through Xiao Hongfei's mind. Then, he looked at Philosthenes again and felt somewhat fortunate. He did have the intention to fight Philostikes before, but when he thought about how Philostikes was able to take out a core formation cultivator's medicinal pill, he realized that he must have a lot of tricks up his sleeve. It could be imagined that he must have a lot of life-saving means. It was extremely difficult to kill such a person. In his opinion, as long as he had a tracking method, it would be much easier to kill the Yu Yang sect's disciple than a fight with Feng Lingzi. Sure enough, since the other party had such a rare beast, he must have even more life-saving treasures. Philostikes didn't know what Xiao Hongfei was thinking. After communicating with the little spirit rat, he said somewhat excitedly, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, let's get ready to go. This little guy has already smelled the scent of thunder attribute spiritual energy. All right, for the sake of caution, fellow Taoist should tell me more about this Lu Kuan's magical power and techniques." No problem. However, during the great battle at the Shangqing sect, this guy's spiritual energy seemed to be of the fire and wood attributes. Back then, I was entangled by a large number of late Foundation establishment cultivators and didn't have the chance to deal with him. However, his various techniques were widely spread among the disciples of the Shangqing sect. At that time, he teamed up with another cultivator called Qin Yushu. Chapter 361. In the sky above an area of the Demon Island, a red flying boat was flying rapidly. There was a faint sound coming from the boat. Damn it, doesn't that guy need to recover? Even his physical strength needs to recover. Moreover, flying artifacts can't use physical strength. With the initial spiritual power capacity, he can still follow behind me. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a pale face. He was Tian Renjia, the Foundation establishment's senior brother of the Red Refining sect, a powerhouse who cultivated the Red Refining demonic art. At this time, he was holding a spirit stone in one hand and controlling the flying boat with the other. He looked quite miserable. The red robe on his body was tattered, and there were bloodstains on his chest. His aura was very unstable. Also in the flying boat was the peak level 3 ferocious badger with dark red hair on its back. This ferocious badger was looking at the back of the flying boat with great vigilance. Its small eyes, which were originally exuding a tyrannical aura, actually faintly revealed a bit of fear. Looking at its body again, one would discover that this demonic beast with terrifying defensive power was somewhat trembling as it stood. One of its hind legs had been bent into a strange angle, as if it had been forcibly broken by some kind of stick. Moreover, the demon aura of this ferocious badger was also extremely chaotic. Not good, that guy is about to catch up. Tian Renjia's spiritual sense was not strong, but he could still detect the situation 3 miles away. He could clearly see a burly man with a long face, expressionless, driving an extremely fast spirit shuttle to chase after him. The previous several pseudo-magic artifacts and this spirit shuttle. How many powerful artifacts does this guy have? I have never heard of any sect in Chu that is good at refining artifacts. And why does he want to kill me? Could it be that the matter of my sect rededucing the red refining demonic art was exposed and the people of the 10 great sects knew? This person is a secret disciple cultivated by the 10 great sects. Tian Renjia's mind was constantly speculating all kinds of possibilities. Yes, it must be like this. Otherwise, how could a rogue cultivator have such a strange cultivation method, and all the artifacts on him are fine? It is impossible without the support of a big sect. To have such an attack power at the early Foundation establishment stage, this technique is much stronger than our Scarlet Refining Devil technique. No, I have to live. This bastard is only at the beginning stage of the foundational level. Even after 3 years, there is no way he can enter the completion level. I will be able to advance to the core formation stage. At that time, I will be able to easily kill him. No matter how strong he is only in the Foundation establishment stage. He will not be able to fight against a core formation stage cultivator who cultivates the Scarlet Refining Devil technique. Tian Renjia's forehead was dripping with sweat as he used his divine sense to detect the approaching enemy. Although I don't know what method this guy is using to track me, No matter what kind of tracking technique it is, there's always a distance limit. Or if there's a powerful isolation array, it'll be very difficult to sense. So, I only have one solution now. Tion Rinja felt that the enemy was already faintly visible behind him. He gritted his teeth and quickly took out a red pill the size of a longan from a storage bag. A burst of fragrance and the smell of blood mixed together. It was their scarlet blood essence pill. With the experience of Martial Uncle Xiang, when I advance, I don't have to use this scarlet blood essence pill. Although the scarlet blood essence pill is used to help the scarlet refining devil technique to advance to the core formation stage, it is also a great supplement for my scarlet refining devil technique. Thinking like this in his heart, Tion Rinja swallowed the pill into his mouth. The scarlet blood essence pill melted in his mouth, and the powerful medicinal power spread all of a sudden. Almost in 2 breaths, Tion Rinja's aura stabilized. Feeling the rapid recovery of the spiritual power in his body, Tion Rinja did not feel the slightest heartache as he madly injected spiritual power into the flying boat under his feet. This scarlet flying boat was also refined according to his scarlet refining devil technique. Under the stimulation of this kind of turbulent spiritual power, the speed soared, and the distance between him and the enemy behind him suddenly increased. Forcefully enduring the slight discomfort in his meridians, Tion Rinja strenuously took out a jade slip and probed it. The central area of the demon island, the place where there is demonic chi, is my only chance. Looking at the direction he was heading, Tion Rinja's eyes flashed with a ray of hope. There is a defensive array there, and Martial Uncle Xiang has already left a way to break it in the jade slip. According to Martial Uncle Xiang's description, that array was set up by an ancient cultivator. If it is attacked by force, even a core formation stage cultivator can't break it. I will be safe when I go in. No, I still need to increase my spiritual power output. The scarlet blood origin pill refined from the 1,000-year blood clot grass is too strong. If I don't consume a large amount of spiritual power, the surging medicinal power will even cause my spiritual power to crystallize. Tion Rinja took out a meridian nourishing pill and swallowed it. Then, ignoring the groaning sound of the flying boat under his feet, he once again increased his spiritual power output. The flying boat's speed was actually close to the speed of a core formation stage cultivator. It carried bursts of sonic booms as it flew towards the central area of the demon island. Lu Kuan, who was following behind Tion Rinja, was dumbfounded as he looked at the spirit force around Tion Rinja's body. That red flying boat, which looked like a top-quality flying magic treasure, was now even faster than the silver dragon spirit shuttle. Xiao Jin, I didn't see wrong, right? After being ambushed by me, this guy didn't recover his spiritual power, but now he still has energy left to explode with such a terrifying speed. The one controlling the spirit shuttle was Lu Kuan, while Xiao Jin sat cross-legged on the spirit shuttle to recover his spiritual power. The monkey's face was filled with pride. The little monkey found that the other party's fierce badger beast couldn't help the flying boat, so it felt an indescribable sense of superiority. Even when it recovered its spiritual power, the monkey's face was filled with joy. After hearing Lu Kuan's words, it activated its innate ability. Its spirit ears flashed with a faint golden light as it sensed the other party's speed. Soon, it opened its eyes and began to explain to Lu Kuan. When Lu Kuan heard Xiao Jin's explanation, he let out a sigh of relief. That's good. Its speed is only a bit faster than the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle's maximum speed. Even if we catch up to 200 miles away, we won't be too far behind. We won't be able to escape the range of your spirit ears. Next, Lu Kuan's hands pressed down on the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle's control platform. Plentiful lightning attribute spiritual power surged from his arms and poured into the spirit shuttle. At this moment, Lu Kuan's spiritual power was very abundant. It seemed like he hadn't used up too much from the previous battle. Under the full power of his arms, the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, and its speed increased once again. The Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle was like an ordinary magic treasure. When Lu Kuan poured his spiritual power into it, it could display its greatest power. Chapter 362. It turned out that after Lu Kuan had shattered Tian Renjia's pseudo-magic treasure, the Crimson Demon Claw, he had relied on Xiao Jin's divine ability to quietly follow him from 5 to 6 miles away. After this guy had made a few probing attempts, he didn't discover any enemies chasing after him. Just as Lu Kuan had expected, he found a place to heal himself. Lu Kuan used the same trick again. He concealed all his presence and sneaked over alone. He discovered that Tian Renjia had chosen to heal himself in a tree hole. He had set up a simple concealment and defensive formation nearby. Then there was the fierce badger beast that had attacked Lu Kuan in the end. It was protecting Tian Renjia. Unfortunately, this fierce badger beast's battle awareness was incomparably strong, but it knew nothing about protecting people. When Lu Kuan sneaked close, this fierce badger beast was actually on top of the tree. It was still quite a distance away from Tian Renjia, and the tree hole was exposed to Lu Kuan's eyes. Facing this enemy that was equivalent to a live target, Lu Kuan used the same trick again. He used the same move as before to strike the Thunderball. He used the Thunderball to bombard the fierce badger beast one after another. Finally, under the fierce badger beast's desperate resistance and the 2 enemy-trapping talismans, Tian Renjia only spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and suffered some minor injuries. However, Lu Kuan's golden eyes saw the increasingly dim Crimson Demon Claw, as well as Tian Renjia's chaotic spiritual power. He knew that this attack was extremely effective. Moreover, in this battle, Lu Kuan and the fierce badger beast fought for a while. Although this fierce badger beast was much stronger than the one in the Smart Demon Valley, he was no longer the same as before. With a terrifying strength of nearly 70,000 pounds, coupled with a meteoric rod, a pseudo-magic treasure for body cultivators, he injured the fierce badger beast in a short time. It was also because of this fierce badger beast obstruction that Tian Renjia had the opportunity to use the 2 talismans, allowing it to escape. Later on, Lu Kuan discovered that this guy was becoming more and more cautious. He almost didn't stop to heal himself. Lu Kuan knew that the other party had already guessed that he had some unknown tracking technique. Lu Kuan didn't hide anymore. After recovering all of his FALE, he urged the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle to chase after them openly. It was no wonder that Xiao Jin felt so superior. It was because it could take turns with Lu Kuan to control the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle. This was why Lu Kuan was able to maintain his FALE and stay far behind Tian Renjia. Just as Lu Kuan's Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle was chasing after the enemy with all its might, 2 cultivators appeared in the center of the redstone forest. One was a square-faced, middle-aged man, and the other was a very ordinary-looking young man. It was Xiao Hongfei and Philostikes who were chasing after them. Philostikes slowly landed on the ground. He looked at the bloodstains on the ground and the torn robe with a thoughtful expression. Then, he began to communicate with the fat little white mouse in his palm. Xiao Hongfei, on the other hand, used his incomparably powerful spiritual sense to carefully examine the surrounding traces of battle. After a while, Philostikes finished communicating with his spirit mouse. He took a deep breath and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, it seems that fellow Taoist Lu is much stronger than before." Xiao Hongfei asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist Foam, can you see something from these traces of battle? I can only feel that a fellow Taoist has fallen here." From your tone, it was Lu Kuan who killed him? Philostikes summoned a piece of torn robe on the ground into his hand and said, "I have an impression of this robe. If I'm not mistaken, it belongs to a disciple of the Red Refining Sect. I just communicated with the spirit mouse. It felt a strong aura of thunder attribute mana here. This means that Lu Kuan had a fierce battle with a disciple of the Red Refining Sect here, and the person he killed was one of the disciples of the Red Refining Sect." Xiao Hongfei frowned and said, "You mean that after Lu Kuan escaped from your encirclement, he met 2 disciples of the Red Refining Sect here, and then Lu Kuan killed one of them?" Philostikes nodded and continued, "And my white spirit mouse also sensed that in addition to the thunder attribute mana here, there is a strange and powerful mana." Xiao Hongfei asked doubtfully, "Are you talking about the Red Devil technique of the Red Refining Sect?" Philostikes' expression was a little ugly and said, No, although the red devil technique is stronger than ordinary techniques, it would never make my white spirit mouse feel this way. It must be an even more powerful technique. If I'm not wrong, it's very likely to be the red refining devil technique. Xiao Hongfei had obviously heard of this technique before. His expression changed, and he quickly asked, "Where did the thunder attribute mana go? Let's hurry up and catch up." If the red refining devil technique is really as powerful as the rumors say, then this guy from the red refining sect is definitely not weak. Lu Kuan also relied on the element of surprise to kill another disciple of the red devil technique. If he was killed by another person, then it would be troublesome. Philosophes said, the one who survived from the red refining sect should be the guy Tian Renjia. No wonder this guy spent nearly 200 years in the Foundation establishment stage. It turns out that he cultivated this kind of devil technique. But Daoist Xiao, you don't have to worry about Lu Kuan. It's better to think about how we can smoothly kill him. Looking at Xiao Hongfei's puzzled expression, Philosophes looked in one direction and explained, "My white spirit mouse sensed that these two mana auras are both heading in that direction." Then Philosophes' expression was a little strange. The white spirit mouse also discovered that the thunder attribute mana stayed for a longer time. It should have set off after Tian Renjia left. This means that Tian Renjia from the red refining sect is escaping and Lu Kuan is chasing after him. Xiao Hongfei's expression froze. He said with some disbelief, if this Tian Renjia cultivates the red refining devil technique, his strength should not be much different from Daoist Feng's. He was actually chased by Lu Kuan, a guy in the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Xiao Hongfei's judgment of Tian Renjia's strength was something that Philosophes silently nodded in agreement. If it was really the red refining devil technique, according to the records in his sect, the perfect stage of the Foundation establishment stage was completely capable of freely controlling pseudo-magic treasures. His strength was definitely powerful. Philosophes said, could it be that after Lu Kuan's technique became thunder attribute, his strength increased so much? According to Daoist Zhao's description, he was only able to kill late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators back then. Xiao Hongfei's expression was a little serious. He said, no matter what kind of fortuitous encounters he had these past few years, now that he can chase after a cultivator of Daoist Feng's level, it means that his true strength is not much different from mine. Moreover, he has the confidence to chase after Tian Renjia, which means that he is also very confident in his escape technique. With his early-stage Foundation establishment cultivation, he can catch up with the speed of a perfect stage Foundation establishment cultivator. Philosophes looked at Xiao Hongfei's cautiousness and said seriously, although these are our speculations and may not be true, I feel that we should act cautiously. We might as well deal with Lu Kuan as the strongest existence under the core formation stage. If his strength is not so strong, then it'll be fine. We'll just have to waste a few more tricks. But if his strength is as we think, then we can succeed. Xiao Hongfei nodded in agreement. He had already made a spiritual sense oath that in order to obtain the divine accumulation pill, he had to kill Lu Kuan. Even if he had to use his trump card, he would not hesitate. As long as Xiao Hongfei took the divine accumulation pill at the crucial moment of breaking through to the core formation stage, then the success rate of his ancient core formation method would increase by another 20%. Then, he would have a 70% chance of success. Then, Daoist Feng, it's best that we exchange our strongest attacks. This way, we can have the best cooperation. No problem. But in addition to attacking methods, I still have 2 mid-grade, top-grade invisibility talismans. Okay, let's continue tracking. Whether Lu Kuan can kill Tian Renjia or not, his strength is definitely not at its peak. As long as we catch him off guard, we'll have a 90% chance of success. Daoist Feng, please take my wind spirit boat. It can save some magic power. Chapter 363. The central area of the Demon Island was a mountain range. Compared to the huge mountain ranges in the outside world that spanned hundreds of kilometers, this mountain range, which only covered an area of a few dozen kilometers, with the highest peak only a few hundred meters high, seemed much smaller. Even so, this mountain range, which stretched for dozens of kilometers, was surrounded by layers of white mist that resembled a fairyland. It was full of rich spiritual energy that was unimaginable to cultivators in the outside world. The central area of the mountain range was covered in mist, which was so dense that it was impossible to see clearly. It seemed to be closely connected to the silver restriction in the sky. The vegetation in the mountain range was full of vitality under the nourishment of such rich spiritual energy. However, what was strange was that there was no sound of birds or insects in the mountain range. It seemed to be dead and lifeless. Putting the deathly stillness without animals and the exuberant vegetation together, even ordinary mortals would feel very uncomfortable, let alone cultivators. On this day, an ear-piercing sound came from the sky, breaking the dead silence of the mountain range. A serious-looking middle-aged man was driving a red flying boat that seemed to be damaged. He was speeding towards the central mountain range of the Demon Island. This man was Tion Rengia, who didn't hesitate to use his flying magic tool to rush here. At this time, his face was slightly pale. The excessive use of magic power along the way had damaged his meridians. Coupled with the two previous battles with Lu Kuan, the injuries to his internal organs hadn't recovered yet. If his body didn't heal in time, it would affect his core formation. If Tion Renja hadn't taken the Scarlet Blood Vitality Pill and used the surging magic power to suppress it, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stand steadily at this time. Tion Renja looked at the small mountain range that wasn't particularly high in front of him. He then used his divine sense to perceive behind him and slightly breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that I've left that guy behind, allowing me to smoothly reach the Demon Spirit Mountain range in the center of the Demon Island. Tion Renja picked up the jade slip in his hand and checked the contents of the jade slip again. At the same time, he checked the shape of several mountains not far away, as if he was judging the location of the mountain range. As he approached, a double-headed mountain appeared in his field of vision. Tion Renjia's face lit up with joy. He put away the jade slip and urged the flying boat under his feet, which could break down at any time, to fly towards this mountain. At the same time, he muttered to himself, "Fortunately, the mountain peak Martial Uncle Xiang described is where demonic qi and spiritual qi converge." Although the spiritual qi here is dense, it's affected by the demonic qi, so it's not beneficial for cultivators to advance to the core formation realm. Therefore, it is impossible for the disciples of the 10 great sects to come to this area. I hope that guy won't catch up so quickly. As long as I have some time, I'll be able to open the formation that Martial Uncle Xiang mentioned and enter it. While Tion Renja was speaking, his flying boat had already approached the double-headed mountain peak. This mountain peak was 70 to 80 feet tall. Compared to the peaks outside, it could only be considered a small mound. However, this small mound looked extremely extraordinary. The two peaks of the double-headed mountain peak were covered in dense white mist and yellow mist. The eastern peak was covered in white mist, and the western peak was covered in yellow mist. If one were to compare the eastern and western peaks, they would find that the double-headed mountain peak was like a dividing line. The western mountain range was completely covered in yellow mist, which was the complete opposite of the eastern mountain range. Tion Rengia, on the other hand, flew towards the middle of the two mountain peaks. His flying speed slowed down after entering the mountain peak, and he slowly disappeared into the white and yellow fog. After the time it took to eat a meal, a light purple spirit shuttle appeared outside the double-headed mountain peak. There was a man and a monkey standing on the spirit shuttle. It was Lu Kuan and Xiao Jin. At this moment, Lu Kuan's face was slightly pale. In order to not lose sight of this enemy, Lu Kuan had no choice but to use all of his strength to control the silver dragon spirit shuttle and follow him here. Although Lu Kuan was still in the early stages of the foundation establishment stage, due to the uniqueness of the body refinement formula, the mana stored in his body was much thicker than that of a normal cultivator in the early stages of the foundation establishment stage. Therefore, if he let Xiao Jin control it, it was very likely that they would lose sight of him. Even if Lu Kuan used all of his strength to chase after him, besides using up most of his FALE, he was almost 20 miles away from Tianrenjia. Looking at the two peaks in front of him, Lu Kuan's expression was somewhat interesting. He stammered, "Xiao Jin, if I'm not wrong, the mountain to the west is filled with demonic qi, right?" When the silver dragon spirit shuttle approached the mountain range, Xiao Jin opened its eyes wide and stared at the mountain filled with yellow mist. When it heard Lu Kuan's words, it hurriedly nodded and looked at the incomparably thick mist with yearning. After receiving Xiao Jin's confirmation, Lu Kuan recalled what the disciples of the 10 great sects said on the spirit dissension platform. He couldn't help but sigh. It seems that there are still many things about this demon island that we don't know. I can't care that much. Tianrenjia must have something to get rid of me by coming here. I have to hurry. I heard that there are many caves of ancient cultivators on the demon island. If he hides in one of the caves, then it'll be troublesome. With my current strength, I can't do anything against a formation in the middle or late core formation stage. As Lu Kuan slowed down and entered the mountain under Xiao Jin's instructions, he lowered his head and pondered. The demonic qi here feels much thicker than in the spiritual demon valley. Moreover, it gives me a much more comfortable feeling than in the demon valley. It definitely doesn't have that strange side effect. After dealing with Tianrenjia, I'll go investigate the demonic qi. Afterwards, he thought about how to deal with Tianrenjia. It's a pity that although the thunder attribute mana cultivated by my Imperial Thunderbody refinement technique is stronger than that of ordinary cultivators, it's still only at the early foundation establishment stage. The numbing power produced by the power of thunder and lightning has almost no effect on Tianrenjia, who cultivates the scarlet refining demonic technique. It seems that this set of techniques can only be unleashed at the late foundation establishment stage, at the very least. If that's the case, I can only use the technique I tested before. However, the highest point here is only 2,000 feet. There's no way to unleash its full power. Then, he seemed to have made up his mind. A trace of fierceness flashed in his eyes. No, even if my body is injured, I have to kill him. After he finished speaking, his silver dragon spirit shuttle flew into the air. He took out the pseudo-magic treasures in the spirit shuttle one by one and reinserted Xiao Jin's wishful meteoric iron staff into it. His meteoric thunder staff followed closely behind. The pair of falling thunderballs were in Lu Kuan's hands. Without the falling thunderballs, the maximum speed of the silver dragon spirit shuttle would decrease. However, Xiao Jin had already told him that after Tianrenjia entered the mountain range, his speed decreased. Therefore, with Xiao Jin controlling the spirit shuttle without the falling thunderballs, he could completely catch up with his opponent. Chapter 364. In the depths of the demon's spirit mountain range, hidden behind the incomparably dense fog of spiritual qi, there was a light silver restriction that extended all the way to the horizon. The silver light circulating above it was very similar to the restriction that shrouded the demon island, and it emitted a frightening aura. At this moment, under the light silver restriction, Tianrenjia didn't pay attention to the blood flowing out of the corner of his mouth. Instead, he held the jade slip and looked around for something. His injured fierce badger beast looked around vigilantly. This time, the demonic beast had learned its lesson and followed closely beside its master, not leaving his side for even an inch. However, when it saw the yellow fog in the distance, its eyes revealed a bit of desire. Found it! At this time, Tianrenjia suddenly cried out. After he cast a spell to shatter the two rocks, he found what seemed to be an array disc underneath. It was a black disc with a diameter of nearly a foot. Outside the black disc, there was a small defensive spell formation that emitted yellow light. Judging from the aura it emitted, it was absolutely not something that a foundation establishment cultivator could break. When Tianrenjia saw this, he didn't reveal the slightest trace of disappointment. Instead, he revealed a happy expression. Then he took out several defensive spell formations and began to arrange them in the vicinity. These are the defensive spell formations that I specially prepared for core formation. Even if that guy finds me, I can use the spherical pseudo-magic treasure to continuously attack. It should be able to resist for a while. Soon, Tion Rinja arranged several defensive spell formations with the formation plate as the center. Soon, a light curtain appeared and shrouded the surroundings. Tion Rinja's expression relaxed. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and took a healing pill to temporarily replace his magic power to suppress the injuries in his body. He didn't have time to use his magic power to refine the medicinal efficacy and took out the jade slip left behind by Martial Uncle Xiang. At the same time, he took out a black token. It was the mysterious magic tool used to enter the demon island, the demon token. He cast a spell on the demon token, making it float above the defensive spell formation outside the black disc. Then, he endured the slight soreness in his meridians and mobilized the magic power in his body. His hands formed some kind of complicated spell formation. At the same time, he muttered an incantation. This incantation didn't seem to be the common language of the immortal cultivation world. Instead, it seemed to be some kind of ancient language. As he chanted the incantation, the abundant magic power in his body rapidly flowed away. The consumed Fa turned into a special type of spiritual power and entered the demon token. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Tion Renjia, who was sweating profusely, finally finished reciting the tedious incantation. As for the demon token in front of him, it had already turned into a small black disc. At this moment, the large disc that was hidden underneath it blossomed with a black radiance. When Tion Renjia saw this light, his expression suddenly became a bit absent-minded. When he came back to his senses, he was surprised to find that the defensive spell formation protecting the black disc had disappeared. The small black disc that the demon token had turned into was embedded in the middle of the large disc below. An ancient demon character was printed on it, exuding a strange aura. When Tion Renjia saw this scene, his eyes widened. He felt that the magic power in his body had been greatly consumed. His eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. This incantation and magic tool is definitely not something that a foundation establishment cultivator can create. Could it be that Uncle Master Xiang had some other opportunity in the Demon Devil Valley and discovered the use of the Demon Devil token? And this black disc that has fused with the Demon Devil token is the Dharma artifact that can open this silver seal? Suddenly, Tion Renjia, who was muttering to himself, sensed a series of rumbles from afar. He subconsciously raised his head and looked over. Through the defensive formation he had set up, he saw an unforgettable scene. In the sky diagonally ahead, there was a light purple spirit shuttle flying in his direction, stirring up the surrounding dense fog and sending it tumbling in all directions. That's right, it was smashing, not flying. This was because Tion Renjia could feel that the spirit shuttle was constantly accelerating. Its speed had already exceeded the flying speed of a Great Circle Foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, relying on the effect of gravity, the speed of the spirit shuttle was getting faster and faster. Although the scene was shocking, Tion Renjia didn't feel fear. What frightened him was the burly figure in front of the spirit shuttle. This person was the culprit who had easily killed his second junior brother and caused his pseudo-magic tool, the Crimson Demon Claw, to lose its spirituality and injure his internal organs. He saw this burly figure standing at the front of the spirit shuttle. His two calves were firmly embedded in the spirit shuttle. His hands seemed to be holding the lightning balls that had attacked him before. His entire arm was filled with purple lightning. Because of the increased speed, this person's body emitted a faint flame. Under the contrast of this flame, this person's eyes seemed to be raging and crazy. What does he want to do? With such a fast speed, does he want to perish together with me? These thoughts quickly flashed through Tion Renjia's mind. However, he was, after all, a cultivator who had cultivated for over 200 years. After the initial panic, he calmed down. He hastily walked towards the light silver restriction. After using the Crimson Demon Claw to defend himself, he threw out the black disc and began to chant a new incantation. At this moment, Lu Kuan, who was at the front of the spirit shuttle, had a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. This ruthlessness wasn't directed towards the enemy, but towards himself. If a normal person were to fall to the ground at such a speed, they would have been scared out of their wits. Even if a core formation stage cultivator were to experience Lu Kuan's current state of mind, they would still be in a state of panic. However, Lu Kuan didn't have the slightest intention of retreating from a move that could seriously injure him. With my defensive power, I won't die. At worst, I'll be seriously injured. What am I afraid of? As the ruthlessness in his eyes grew stronger and stronger, Lu Kuan slightly bent his legs when he was about 300 meters away from the defensive formation that Tian Renjia had laid down. An angry roar came out of his mouth, as if he was accumulating strength. His legs suddenly kicked. The spirit shuttle, which was originally rapidly falling, suddenly came to a stop. Its speed that was close to that of a core formation cultivator seemed to have stopped for a split second. Lu Kuan's speed increased several times, and he bombarded the formation that Tian Renjia had laid down. At some point in time, the two lightning balls in his hands had merged together. At the same time, they became several times larger, as if they were two connected watermelons. Boom! The defensive formation that could resist an early core formation cultivator was only able to resist for a split second before it shattered. Lu Kuan pushed the two enlarged lightning balls and fiercely smashed them towards Tian Renjia, who was chanting an incantation. Success! Just as Lu Kuan's attack landed on Tian Renjia's defensive Dharma artifact, the black Dharma disc released a black light, and a black light shot toward the restriction in front of it, creating a hole in the silver restriction that could allow a person to pass through. At the same time, Lu Kuan's combined lightning balls bombarded the Scarlet Demon Claw. At this time, the Scarlet Demon Claw was damaged and Tian Renjia had used his magic power to cast the incantation. Therefore, its power was greatly reduced. In an instant, it was blasted back by Lu Kuan's attack. At this time, Tian Renjia just happened to leap forward. The Scarlet Demon Claw that was repelled by Lu Kuan hit his defensive magic shield. Before the shield could break, Lu Kuan's two lightning balls came one after another. Because the force of the fall was too great, Lu Kuan could only barely change the direction of the attack. Instead of hitting Tian Renjia's head, he blasted towards his waist. At this moment, Tian Renjia's hand just happened to grab the black formation plate. Immediately after, a black spirit light shrouded his body. It seemed to sense his danger and wanted to protect him. Unfortunately, it was still a step too late. Lu Kuan's extremely violent attack directly shattered Tian Renjia's waist. The black spirit light only protected Tian Renjia's upper body. Lu Kuan's remaining force smashed it into the black hole that appeared in the silver formation. Boom! Chapter 365. Tian Renjia's Spirit Beast. The peak of the third-rank Fierce Badger had already discovered this terrifying enemy the moment Lu Kuan appeared in the sky. This incomparably ferocious demonic beast, which even dared to kill enemies one rank higher than it, stood to the side in a daze and did not help its master. This was not only because its master was concentrating on controlling the black disc and did not order it, but also because the badger had an incomparably powerful battle awareness and spiritual sense. It had a premonition that if it helped its master resist this terrifying attack, it would undoubtedly die. Although its defensive power had reached the peak of the 5th-ranked demonic beast, under this kind of attack that made its soul tremble, other than being smashed into a pile of mud, there was no other result. Sure enough, it saw with its own eyes that its powerful master, who had subdued it, was split into two by this enemy. The remaining power of the attack even smashed a 3-meter deep hole in the ground. As if it was frightened by the power of this attack, the dark red fierce badger crouched on the ground, not daring to make any strange movements. After waiting for a long time, it still didn't discover any movement in the large pit. So, it cautiously stepped on its catwalk and limped forward. At this moment, a light purple spirit shuttle descended and landed beside the hole, startling the fierce badger and causing it to quickly retreat a step. It saw a yellow-haired little monkey jump down from the spirit shuttle, bearing its fangs at the fierce badger. This made the fierce badger extremely unwilling. It did not have the courage to fight with that terrifying man, but this unknown demonic monkey actually dared to provoke it. Previously, when it fought with the little monkey, if it was not for the fact that the other party could use human weapons, it would have already crippled this damned monkey. Now that the little monkey was baring its teeth and hooking its finger at it, it was constantly pointing at the light purple spirit shuttle. Although the fierce badger beast didn't quite understand the exact meaning, the disdain and contempt in the eyes of the repulsive monkey couldn't be more obvious. This caused the fierce badger to burn with anger. It stealthily glanced at the still motionless hole and discovered that the terrifying man seemed to have disappeared. The ferocious badger's small eyes revealed an ominous glint. It crouched down and retreated slightly, intending to rush over and exterminate this loathsome monkey. But just as the fierce badger rushed out, a figure quickly jumped out of the hole and stood in front of the little monkey. The fierce badger felt the terrifying power hidden in this man's body and let out a strange cry. Its front claws struck the ground with two dark red rays of golden light, stopping its body in its tracks. TSK, TSK, this fierce badger beast of yours is actually quite smart. It actually knows how to judge the situation. The one I saw before was much more stupid than you. It seems that the short exchange with you left a deep impression on you. The one who spoke was naturally Lu Kuan. At this moment, he looked rather miserable. His robe had been torn to shreds, with only a few pieces of cloth hanging on his body. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and a large amount of blood was flowing out of his arms. It looked like his injuries were not light, but Lu Kuan was very satisfied. This time, using the humanoid lightning fall, the degree of injury was much better than the first time. At the very least, after activating the giant arms god art, his arms only bled a little. It had to be known that his skin had cracked the first time. Moreover, Lu Kuan felt that although the height was not more than 300 meters, with Xiao Jin controlling the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle to accelerate, the attack power would be even stronger than the last time. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Kuan looked at the ferocious badger beast in front of him and smiled. Your ferocious badger beast is quite cautious. It is afraid that I will kill it in a hurry to escape. Okay, I will give you a chance. As long as you defeat my family's little monkey, I will let you live. How about it? When Lu Kuan said this sentence, not only the fierce badger beast, but also Xiao Jin's eyes lit up. Xiao Jin had long been unconvinced by the previous battle. Later, he found a sense of superiority from controlling the flying magic tool. At this time, his battle intent was strong. The fierce badger beast had long found this little monkey unpleasant to the eye. Hearing this man say so, it felt very happy. Even the way it looked at this man softened a little. However, the fierce badger beast had a little regret in its heart. It could only beat this annoying monkey in the next battle. This monkey was this man's spirit beast. It seemed that there was no way to kill it. Lu Kuan looked at the flashing lights in the eyes of the two beasts. For some reason, he could roughly guess their thoughts. He couldn't help but feel a little funny. Then he channeled the remaining spiritual power to put away the meteoric thunder staff in the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle, and Xiao Jin took out his meteoric iron staff. Squeak! Squeak! Xiao Jin, holding the meteoric iron staff in his hand, suddenly screamed at the fierce badger beast. When Lu Kuan heard this, his face turned black. He suddenly felt that Xiao Jin had spent too much time with his little disciple, Pan Yen. He actually told the fierce badger beast that his demon spirit power was insufficient. The fierce badger beast's hind leg was injured, and the two sides were fighting fairly. He didn't have the consciousness of taking advantage of the situation at all. The fierce badger beast on the opposite side seemed to understand. There was a look of disdain in its eyes. The meaning of that expression couldn't be clearer. It seemed to be saying that even if you have sufficient demon spirit power, you are still not my opponent. Lu Kuan smiled and shook his head. He didn't care about the two beasts. After he put away the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle, he began to check the things left behind by Tian Renjia. Before the attack, Lu Kuan found through his golden eye that Tian Renjia was releasing some kind of profound spell to open this seemingly unbreakable silver restriction. He was eager to open the restriction and didn't pay attention to defense, so the pseudo-magic weapon, Red Demon Claw, was easily blown away by Lu Kuan. That black disc looked so strange. The black spirit light it released at the end seems to be an incredible divine ability. The force of my fall, coupled with the power of the giant arm divine ability at the last moment, is probably 150,000 pounds. The black light could actually protect his upper body. Lu Kuan looked at the ground that was blasted to pieces. He couldn't find his lower body, and he couldn't help but think of the black light. He didn't know why, but he faintly felt that this black light was somewhat familiar, as if he had felt it somewhere else. Yes, in the redstone forest. Not long after, Lu Kuan remembered. Not long ago, he was on a stone pillar in the redstone forest. He felt the pressure from the blood that was suppressing his nerves. Could this black light be the magical power of the previous owner of the blood? The feeling it gave me was very similar. It was also suppressing the physical body. Lu Kuan then looked at the silver restriction that had returned to its original state. Previously, from the corner of his eye, he faintly saw the black disc and Tian Renjia's upper body enter the previously open hole. After that, the small hole disappeared without a trace. This made Lu Kuan feel that something was wrong. My attack hit his Dantian. With his foundation establishment stage cultivation, this move should have crippled him. Even with the help of the black light, the power of the shock should have entered his body. Chapter 366. After thinking for a while, Lu Kuan judged that Tian Renjia was dead, so he was relieved. Then he looked around, picked up the damaged red demon claw, and showed a smile. Pseudo-magic weapon is a pseudo-magic weapon after all, and its value is great. With my and senior brother Chin's refining skills, it won't take much effort to transform this pseudo-magic weapon from the original one. I guarantee that the people of the Red Refining Sect won't be able to see it. It seems that my Yang clan's refining skills are still very good for selling stolen goods. Thinking of going back to transform it and then putting it on the Abyss auction house for auction, Lu Kuan happily put this pseudo-magic weapon into his bag, and then he put away a nearby jade slip and 3 scattered storage bags. Fortunately, Lu Kuan hit Tian Renjia's waist. If he hit his leg, his opponent might not die, and he wouldn't even get the storage bag. Lu Kuan simply glanced at these storage bags, and the smile on his face became more and more brilliant. Not to mention other precious things in the storage bag. There were 7 or 8 500-year-old blood coagulation grass in it. He deserves to be the respected senior brother of the Red Refining Sect. With so many blood coagulation grasses in his hand, plus those of Kai Fingyan, he can refine enough blood marrow powder. Lu Kuan then glanced at the dozen or so jade bottles containing blood essence in his bag of holding and muttered to himself, I've accumulated a lot of blood essence in the past 2 years. After this matter is over, I'll find a secret place and finish carving the spirit-controlling formation all over my body after my injuries are healed. After the spirit-controlling array is completed, my physical body's ability to absorb spirit chi will reach the maximum. With the extremely rich spirit chi of the Demon Island, it should be no problem to advance to the middle stage of foundation establishment. When I enter the middle stage, my sustained fighting capacity will be greatly enhanced. By then, even if I encounter 2 or 3 opponents like Tian Renjia, I will be able to put up a fight. After muttering to himself, Lu Kuan looked at the 2 demonic beasts that were locked in battle not far away. Ignoring them, he glanced at the jade slip in his hand and found that the beginning described the crimson refining demonic art. Without looking at it carefully, he threw it into his storage pouch to study it later. Then he sat down cross-legged on the spot and began to circulate the Imperial Thunderbody refinement art to heal the injuries in his body. Because the heaven and earth spirit chi here was extremely abundant, he didn't need to use spirit stones to cultivate. As Lu Kuan was cultivating, the battle between Xiao Jin and the ferocious badger grew even more intense. Unknowingly, the 2 Yao beasts had moved further away from Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan was more relieved about this. He was very clear about the strength of the ferocious badger. In the case of retreating with injuries, its speed was a bit slower than Xiao Jin, so Xiao Jin was almost in no danger. Moreover, Lu Kuan also had the power of divine sense at the late stage of foundation establishment. At this distance, he could completely see the battle. When he found that Xiao Jin was gradually gaining the upper hand in the battle, he simply stopped paying attention and focused on healing his injuries. In addition to the muscles and blood vessels in Lu Kuan's arms, which were torn and damaged due to excessive strength, the organs in his body also suffered a lot of shock. However, after he reached the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, the strength of the bones in his body had greatly increased and were intact. At this time, there was not much thunder attribute spiritual power left in his body. It was mainly consumed when driving the silver dragon flying boat. The remaining spiritual power was consumed when he used the Thunderball during the attack of the humanoid Thunderfall technique. If I enter the great circle of foundation establishment, my entire body, including my internal organs, will have been completely tempered by thunder attribute spiritual power. This move should be easy to use. Moreover, when I reach the great circle of foundation establishment, the power of thunder and lightning in my body will reach its peak. At that time, I'm afraid that even core formation cultivators will be affected. Combined with my increased strength, I will be able to fight against core formation cultivators. As Lu Kuan healed his injuries, he deduced the increase in combat strength in the later stages. His heart was filled with pride. He had no doubt that he would be able to fight against core formation cultivators at the great circle of foundation establishment. The fight he was thinking of was a one-on-one battle, not a few moves from core formation cultivators like the outside world said. Just as Lu Kuan's face was slightly raised because of his thoughts, a burst of spiritual power fluctuations suddenly came from nearby. Lu Kuan was in the middle of circulating the distant body-tempering mantra and thinking of other things. Facing this sudden fluctuation, his reaction was much slower than usual. When he felt the disturbance and opened his eyes, a thick diamond ring the size of a millstone smashed towards him. It emitted a heavy and terrifying aura, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. A pseudo-magic treasure. As soon as Lu Kuan saw the thick diamond ring, these three words appeared in his mind. At this time, he had no time to take out his meteoric staff to block. Lu Kuan let out a roar of unwillingness. With a thought, he forcibly activated the giant arm's divine ability. The pair of giant arms crossed in front of him to block. Boom! A dull sound came. Lu Kuan was already sent flying by the diamond ring pseudo-magic treasure. He crashed into the silver restriction behind him and was hit by the diamond ring until he was dizzy. Even with the support of the giant arm's divine ability, Lu Kuan was immediately seriously injured after being hit by this terrifying attack. This was even after he had mobilized the muscles in his arms to disperse the power of the diamond ring throughout his body. At this time, another wind blade emitting a dark green light flew towards Lu Kuan. A wind attribute spell. No, it's a pseudo-magic treasure. Lu Kuan's body was still numb from the dispersion of the diamond ring's power. He couldn't summon the spiritual power in his body and had no time to dodge. Through his eyes, he could clearly see that this wind blade had a crescent-shaped blade. It was also a pseudo-magic treasure. He only had time to continue blocking in front of his body with his numb forearm. As if it had sensed Lu Kuan's danger, the five-color halo that had only appeared once floated on its forearm. Clang! It was like the sound of two pieces of metal hitting each other. Lu Kuan's arms drooped down powerlessly. The light on his thick arms dimmed for a moment. Then they quickly returned to their original state. However, deep wounds appeared on his forearms, so deep that the bones could be seen. Even the bones inside his arms had a slight crack. When Lu Kuan attacked Tian Renjia with all his strength, he had already consumed a lot of blood essence. After being injured, his arms also bled a lot. Now that he didn't have a chi and blood pill to make up for it, after the five-colored halo of the giant arm's divine ability was broken, it returned to its original state. Even if Lu Kuan had the protection of the giant arm's divine ability and relied on the precise control of his body to disperse the power, he was still almost knocked out by these two attacks. At this time, he fell down weakly along the silver restriction. Is this guy made of pseudo-magic treasure? He used his body to take our joint attack and is still alive. No, his body is still intact. Lu Kuan opened his eyes with difficulty and saw the two figures in front of him. One of them was a young man with an ordinary appearance. It was the eldest senior brother of the Heavenly Talisman sect that he had seen before. As for the other man, he only felt that his aura was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember it at the moment. Demon Monkey! Suddenly, the young man shouted. He saw a yellow figure moving at lightning speed catch the falling Liu Cohen. Yellow light flashed under its feet as it fled towards the west at an extremely fast speed. The Vajra ring and the scimitar emitting a dark cyan light reacted extremely quickly and immediately attacked the yellow figure. Clang! The yellow figure only spat out a mouthful of blood. Borrowing the strength of these two pseudo-magic treasures, its speed increased a bit. Impossible! How can a mere second-grade demon beast not die? The young man said in surprise. Then he focused his eyes and found that the demon monkey was carrying two shiny silver rods on its back. The attack just now had landed on these two rods. Not good. It's escaping into the western demonic aura area. Fellow Taoist Shao, let's chase after it. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.